Welcome to my channel, where mysteries unfold, strange tales come to life, and the unexplained takes center stage. Here, we dive deep into eerie legends, unsolved cases, and supernatural phenomena that defy logic. Are you ready to step into the unknown? Brace yourself, keep an open mind, and join us as we uncover the world's greatest mysteries. Please listen to the story. There's something in the closet. I grew up in a small town called Lake Los Angeles. It's 30 minutes away from Lancaster, an hour away from Los Angeles. This house was bought by my dad. He built it up. Whatever was in that house didn't come from the land. It came from something I didn't know. The first encounters. I would be outside playing or be alone. I would hear my mom call me. I would run to her. This happened countless times. My mom would be like, "No, I didn't call you. What are you talking about?" I do recall the feeling of being watched, being afraid to be alone. I was really scared of being alone. Even as a toddler, as a baby, I was scared of being alone in that house. I was in 3rd grade. I was sitting down next to my bed folding my clothes. My closet was wide open. I felt something in my head was like, "Oh, look at the closet." As I turned around, my hangers start moving, like somebody is looking for clothes. I stood frozen. When I could react, I ran out of my room and went to go tell my mom. My mom was like, "Oh no, you're probably just imagining things." It was probably just the AC. It was probably just the wind. But there was nothing on no fans. Nothing that could explain that. After that, I can't remember much. Just being really scared of being alone. I was really terrified of my closet. I would close my closet at night, wake up, and the part of the closet was open. It was a sliding door closet. It was open, like if somebody could peek through. I would gaslight myself. Oh, maybe I didn't close it right. But now thinking back on it, I would close my closet right, because I was very scared. I was in 4th grade when I actually started seeing whatever was in the house. My dad had an office room. Our hallway was really long. It just had doors. I was sitting there in my room watching TV. My dad was in his office earlier. I never saw him leave. But all of a sudden, I did see him walk by. I was going to ask my dad, "Hey, can I play pinball on the computer? Or go on Club Penguin?" I walked into the office. It was just pitch black. When I had just seen whatever that figure was walk into that room, that's when I was like, there's something wrong in this house. I saw that figure go into the room. Since the hallway was dark, the room was dark. I didn't make note of it. I didn't think, but as I walked up to the door was shut when I opened it. The room was completely pitch black. There was nobody in there. I ran to the garage, told my dad. My dad is a very non-believer. And he was like, "No, it's just in your head. You're watching movies," I told my mom. I feel like my mom always knew what was going on in that house. She would always try to keep it calm by telling me it was just my imagination. I continued to see shadows out of the corners of my eyes or the closet. I would hear noises in the closet, rustling, things like that. We left to Mexico for vacation, and we came back. I overheard this conversation. My uncle was telling my mom that in my room, in the closet, he heard voices. He heard rustling. He felt something, a very negative presence watching him. My mom was like, "Oh, it's just our sister," because her sister had passed away. My uncle was like, "No, that is not a presence of our family. That is the presence of something bad." My mom chose to blow it off. Later on, I think I was in 6th grade. I don't remember a lot of stuff. Maybe I blocked it out because I was so scared. I used to love watching a haunting. I was sitting there watching with my dog. I started hearing my dog. She was growling at the hallway. I was like, "What's wrong?" She stopped. I continued to watch TV. Then she starts barking like crazy. I looked up and I saw this tall, dark figure walk from that office room to my parents' room. My dog was going crazy, barking, barking, barking. I grabbed her and I went outside and I was like, "Hey, this is what I saw." They always wanted to tell me that's not what you saw, that it was just in my head or in my imagination. I know it was it. After that, things started to pick up a lot. I started feeling things touch me and whisper right next to me. There was this one instance. My sister had come over. She was healing the relationship with our family. I was babysitting her son. He was toddler age 2 or 3. She left him in his playpen. They had all left to Walmart. I was left alone. I was in my bedroom cleaning, getting ready for school the next day. 'Cause it's Sunday, I felt like when somebody walks behind you. But somebody small. I thought it was my nephew. I was like, oh. He climbed out of his playpen's gonna go play. Next to my closet where I have all the toys, I start hearing rustling where my backpack was. Where all the toys were, I was like, hey, baby, stop doing that. It just continued. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw his figure, a small little figure there. I was like, hey, you need to stop. Don't rip my stuff. I walk from my bed to where the closet is. There was nothing. I immediately ran out and went to go see where he was. He was sleeping in his playpen. I picked him up and ran outside and called my sister. Hey, you need to get home right now. I don't remember being this hysterical, but my sister said I was crying, screaming, telling her to come home. She came home as fast as she could and calmed me down. She didn't gaslight me. She knew what was going on in the house. She knew what was happening. Time goes by, we're moving out of this house. It was during recession, we were going to Mexico. I was packing my stuff. The same way my closet was open in the 3rd grade. The same everything I was doing, the same. I looked up again. My hangers were just moving. I was so mad at the circumstances of moving to a new country. I told that you need to stop. You need to leave me alone. I was so mad it just stopped. Those moving hangers just stopped. Completely stopped. It was shaking, and it stopped. Right before moving out, my mom was sitting down on the couch. We were watching novellas. I got upset at her. I left to my room and locked the door. I was sitting there writing in my diary. All of a sudden, I just feel my room shake like an earthquake. We used to have this religious figure. It was L.A. Virgin Maria. She's holding baby Jesus. And there started rocking back and forth as soon as everything stops. I get up, run to my mom, and I'm like, hey, Mom. There was an earthquake. There was an earthquake. My mom just looks at me. She's like, what are you talking about? Are you okay? What's going on? I explained to her. She just was like, okay, we'll pray together. That's when my mom started really realizing that I wasn't lying. She knew the whole time. Fast forward to us being adults, living in a new house. We were all sitting down. I started telling my mom, remember when you would gaslight me so much? About this house, my sister starts laughing. They start laughing. They're like, we all experienced stuff in that house. They just wanted to protect me. Have me not be afraid. My sisters. They decided to play summoning games, mirror games, Ouija board in that room. The closet used to have mirror doors. After the seminary games, she dreamt about a demon, a presence trying to suck her into the mirror. She woke up with scratches on her cheeks. I think when my sisters played those summoning games, those mirror games, that Ouija board, they let something out. It wasn't good. I don't know if it was a demon, but it liked to mess with me. I liked to cause fear to make itself known. It was really scary. My mom, she tells me that in that room, she was never able to sleep. She felt like something was there. A negative, nasty presence watching her. My sister, when she would come over, she wouldn't sleep in there either. Everybody who stayed at that house, that was family. Not family. They always said the same thing. They heard ruffling in the closet or a voice, a really strong, negative energy watching upon them while they sleep. Whatever it was, it's still in that house right now. That house, it's alone. Nobody lives in there. There's abandoned cars there. Somebody owns it, but I don't think anybody stays or resides there anymore. I've never been back to that house. I did go back to my friend's house. He lives next door. We were waiting. I forgot before my friend was like, "Let's play Ouija board, come on. It'll be fun." I said, "Okay." That's fine. We started to play. It's going smoothly. We look up protection. We do it in a safe way, but all of a sudden, the mood changes when my friend asks it the question. "Hey, do you know us?" It says yes. We ask it, "How long have you known us?" It doesn't reply. We asked, "Have you known us since we were kids?" Yes. I've started to feel exactly how I felt in that house. That same presence that I always felt. I don't know what it was, just a negative, dark presence. I told my friend, "We need to stop. We need to stop playing this. Whatever was in that house is channeling through your house. We need to stop." When we stopped, we closed everything, said goodbye, but I still felt very uneasy, like I was being watched, the same way I hadn't felt in a long time. My friend was like, "Oh, you're fine, you're fine." I went home that day. I still felt the same way. Lights would flicker. I don't know if it was a coincidence. I started waking up at odd times. 3 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning. I started feeling scared. My friend was like, "You should go to somebody who does a cleansing." We did a cleansing. She said whatever was in that house before was trying to attach itself to me again. The curandera brujera. I don't know what to refer to her as. Told me that. Not to play with those things because in my family, somebody had done brujeria to my dad. Whatever was out to hurt my dad was out to hurt us. I didn't know this, my mom. She did confirm that. My grandma and my aunt would do brujeria. They would do things like that. That's what the lady ended up advising me. That's why I feel like I believe a lot in that now. So later on, my mom met the lady that rented the home. She asked my mom, was there anything? Did anybody pass away in this house? My daughters are experiencing things that we can't explain. My mom said, I would just pray and be strong with your faith. In your religion, they can't hurt you. My mom didn't tell her what happened. It is not to scare her. She had just rented out the house. She was a single mom. She was happy. I still experience paranormal things. We moved into a different house. And this one wasn't as scary. It was comforting. We moved into a house and my dad works with word a lot. He was making my mom's friends a box for her ashes. Her ashes were in our house. I remember this night. They had took my door away because I was being a bad kid. I was falling asleep. My dog was barking at the hallway. I pushed him so he would stop. I woke up, he's still doing it. I decided to cover him with the blanket. As I'm falling asleep, I felt something. Like when your mom used to wake you up to go to school. If she would touch your face to wake you up. That's what it felt like somebody was doing to me. I brushed it off. I thought it was my dog. Then I felt it again. I opened my eyes, there was nothing in the room. My dog was just sitting there frozen. I think he was scared he was silent. I was like looking everywhere. There was nothing in the room. We say it's that person, my mom's friend, because I used to call her Grandma. I feel like in a way I was her coming to say bye. She never got to say bye to me. But that's a different experience. Not as scary as the ones in that house, where I felt things touching me or watching me. It's really scary to think there's things out there that like to cause fear that want to hurt you, especially when you're a child. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story, A Bad Feeling. It was on July of 1987. I lived in the Pacific Northwest. It was during the summer. So it's really hot, it was July. It's really humid where I lived at the time. And it was about 12, I was on summer break alone. So I was alone in the house. They knew it was going to be really hot, so I wanted to make sure. All the doors and windows were closed because we didn't have air conditioning. My grandpa, who was in the hospital in California at that time, but they said he was pretty stable. My Nana, who's his wife, my grandmother, she was at home. She wasn't going to visit in the hospital that day. My uncle was over taking care of her. It was in the morning too, but it was already starting to get warm out. I started doing my chores. The dishes, when then I started vacuuming. And then I felt this really sharp tap, like someone poking on my back. I felt it a few times, and I was home alone in the house. I don't have any siblings. I turned around, and there was no one there. There was no one else in the house. The living room got really cold. All of a sudden, I had a really bad feeling. So I turned off the vacuum, and then I went. I just went outside for a little bit to warm up, and I did not vacuum the rest of the day. The run at same time in California is around 10:30. My Nana got a really bad feeling, and she went straight back to the hospital. She told me that when she got there. She took my grandfather's hands, and he opened his eyes. And then he passed away. It happened at the same time that I got tapped on the shoulder, because I remember them telling me it was around 11. I looked at the clock at our house, and it was 11 too. My mom got home, and she said, "I have to tell you something." And she was pretty sad, but I already knew. I don't know how, but I just knew what she was going to tell me. I didn't vacuum for a long time after that. I'm in my 40s now, and even when I'm vacuuming in my house by myself, I leave a door open even if it's snowing here. I'm so still terrified. Like 30 years later that this is going to happen again. My Nana said that she felt for the next year or so that, and my grandfather would send her messages, but no one in my family believed her, because I just thought, she's just the grieving widow and making stuff up. But then in this time, it's a couple years later in like 1989, my Nana was going to go visit my great aunt, who was in San Francisco. She was getting in the car, and she said, my grandpa spoke to her and told her not to go. She got out of the car and she called my great aunt. And they said, they calculated that the time it would have happened, she would have been on the bridge, and the time it collapsed. I don't know if you ever knew that. About the Bay Bridge collapsing, it was just toppled down onto another layer of the bridge, and hundreds of people died. It's really tragic. As with most of our calls go, I asked Tara if she had any more experiences, and she thought of one more. Here it is. My friend's friends got in 7th grade. It was summer. Got like a Ouija board, which my mom always told me, do not mess with those. Do not bring it in my house. I wasn't going to bring it in the house. But I went over to a friend of a friend's house. There's this girl, and she was just a little off. There was just something weird about her. But my best friend was with me, and it was daytime. I figured it would be okay. So we went over to her house, and we started playing with it. She started asking it questions. What's your name? Are you from here? Are you a bad spirit? And it said yes. So I was done at that point. I was like, okay, we should stop fighting like this. But she wanted to keep going, which was a little unnerving. So then she just kept asking it questions. Then my other friend was like, okay, we just need to stop this now, because we're inviting something bad into the house. We stopped, and we said goodbye. And then all the magnets on her fridge flew off the fridge to the other side of the house. I've never seen anything like. It was terrifying, and the house got really cold. We got up and pretty much ran out of the house, and I never played with her again. I think she disappeared a couple years later. She just stopped coming to school, but yeah, just a really bad vibe for her. Don't leave just yet, since today's stories are short. I am publishing 3 in total. Have you listened to them yet? They're up and available now as separate episodes. Also remember, you can share your own story with me over on True, scarystory.com, for your chance to have it featured. On an upcoming episode to listen ad-free, try out Scary Plus over on scaryplus.com. Completely free for 14 days, and then $4.99 a month, and you can cancel whenever you want. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story, Don't Look Out Toward the Fields, a Paranormal. I am originally from the Rio Grande Valley in Texas. It's right on the Texas-Mexico border. The experience that I had that really got me into the paranormal was an evening at an aunt and uncle's house. It's built on top of these cinder blocks. It's a lifted wooden house. I grew up in a house like that too. We would always joke when it's cold outside. It's colder inside when it's hot outside. It's hotter inside. You can hear everything that's happening, just the way that those houses were built. Everything echoed. Growing up, we had barbecues all the time. There was always a carne asada happening. It seemed to rotate whose family was going to stay. When the barbecue ended, one evening, that was my family. It was my parents and myself. The barbecues ended. Everybody's gone except for my aunt and my uncle, my parents and myself. I was very young, maybe 6th grade or junior high. We were sitting in their kitchen. To paint that for you, if you can imagine it, the back of their house, there was a door to the backyard. Above the sink, there was a window where you could see what we call Monty. You could say it was like brush. Just trees and bushes and stuff. That's how the whole Rio Grande Valley is. It's a very agricultural area in the state. Imagine this house, sitting in the middle of all this empty land, with just fields and montes surrounding it. It was at night. My aunt starts telling my parents how she's worried. Because her sons are out, she's worried for their safety. Just general mother things. My parents try to calm her down, and they try to tell her you've raised good kids. Your sons have good heads on their shoulders. They have cell phones now. Not to age myself. People were just starting to get their own cell phones. My mom said they'll be fine. They're not going to drink and drive. And if they need help, they have our numbers. We can go pick them up or something. Mythia says I'm not worried about what they're doing. Out there, I know that they're fine. I know they're responsible. I'm worried about what happens when they try to come home. We're all very confused by this. 'Cause what does that mean? My parents ask her, what's going on when they're trying to get home? Mythia starts telling us the last couple times that her boys have gone out. When they get home, they will either tell their parents, or their parents would be awake. They would all experience it together. Just strange things would happen. They would hear voices or noises. When Matilda, she would stay up washing dishes late, looking out that back window into the monte. She could see shadows at night. When they'd go to check, there would be nobody there. Nobody would have reason to be out there. Again, it's in the middle of all this field land and stuff. There's no roads that go into that neighborhood. Just weird things started happening at night. As they're telling us this, we're sitting in their kitchen. It's a long table. My parents are on one side. My aunt and my uncle are on the other side. I'm at the head of the table. Opposite of me is their back door. She's telling us this, and in the middle of her, explaining these strange occurrences, that back door that I have a direct line of sight to starts shaking violently. The handle is metal, and it's jiggling like someone's trying to open it. And the door is being pulled back and forth in this wooden house. You could feel the whole room shaking. Everybody froze and was staring at the door. There is this 3-liter of soda next to me on the table, and I slowly pushed it in front of my face to hide myself from this door. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I had never really seen anything like that before. I don't know why I thought this would protect me. We're all frozen for a minute. And my uncle? He gets up. He's grumbling something under his breath. He goes to the door and he rips it open. There's nothing there. We're all even more silent. If that could happen. I'm petrified at this point. He says it was a dog. It was probably a dog just messing with the door. I saw when he opened the door. I couldn't look away even though I wanted to. And there was nothing there. I saw that there was nothing there. He closes the door and he sits back down. My aunt, she starts getting scared again. She says, you see, that's what I'm talking about. I feel like there's something on this land. There's something out there. And I'm worried that something's going to happen to the boys when they try to get home later. Again, as she's trying to explain this to us, the door starts shaking again, even harder this time. This entire time I couldn't move. I was frozen. I wanted to run to a different part of the house, but I was just scared to move again. This door is shaking violently back and forth. The handle, you can hear the metal jingling. My uncle gets up again, opens the door. This time, we see a dog. But the dog is running up to the door. It wasn't already there. He said, "It's the dog." It's the dog. Throws the dog a scrap of leftover meat. Closes the door, but I'm thinking no. I can see this all happening. The dog was running up to the door. They closes the door, sits down, and my uncle chimes in, and he's just trying to brush it off. Like it's just, there's stray dogs out here. or out here in the Monte. There's animals and stuff. It's probably coyotes or just trying to explain it away. He's a big skeptic. Okay, sure, animals. Even though we're not buying it. As he's talking about that, we hear the dog at the door whimper. Like when a dog gets hit, it starts to cry. We hear the cry getting fainter and fainter. The dog is running away. We can hear it running away again. The door starts to shake. My uncle was right there ready for it. He was waiting for it. He knew it was going to happen again. So he gets up, throws the door open again. There's nothing. By that third time, we had enough. The first time was enough for me. But I was at their mercy there. My parents, they drove us. I had to wait for them. By that third time, my parents were like, okay, we're gonna go. We'll pray for your kids. I don't know if they came up with the game plan or what the conversation was, but I was in escape mode. I was ready to get out of there. But also, that meant that I had to walk outside to the car, which I didn't want to do, because I don't know what's out there. Something's out there terrorizing us. And I think I just remember running to my parents' van and just jumping in and ready to go, and I've never been back to. That house, since that happened, that is definitely one of the biggest contributions to my interest in the paranormal. I think it's one of the biggest reasons why. I started my own podcast about the paranormal. On my show, it's called Sususto, and I tell scary stories from the folklore of Latin, American, and Hispanic cultures. Because aside from that one experience, I heard so many stories about lechuzas and L.A. Llorona, chupacabras El Cucuy, and so you can imagine, when this was happening that night, all these kind of legends, these monsters, they're running through my head. And I'm just going through this Rolodex of, okay, which one is it? Which one is it? Which one's coming after us right now? That moment in my life was a big, I think, contributing factor to starting Sous Chef. You know what, I really haven't told this story too much. On my own show, I think I've mentioned it a couple times, but I haven't gone into such great detail retelling it. Now I'm thinking about, I don't think I've ever had a real conversation with my parents about it. It was one of those things where it happened, and we just didn't really talk about it. I don't think any of us wanted to remember it. That's why I'm like this now. Share a story with our community by going to True. Scary story. Calm and tapping on the I have a story button. And we'll get in touch ad. Free versions of the show are available on Scary Plus. Calm, and you can get in touch with me over on Instagram as Edwin Cove. That's EDWINCOV. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Everyone, see you. Please listen to the story Ghosts of the Beach House, a Family's Encounter. Growing up, I had a lot of paranormal experiences. They were super subtle sensitivity to energies, noticing things in the home, hearing things when I was growing up in Fredericksburg, Virginia, if you're unfamiliar with the place. There was a lot of battles that happened. In Fredericksburg, Virginia, there's a lot of paranormal activity. They do a lot of Civil War, Revolutionary War reenactment. My grandfather was a home inspector. He would take me on a lot of his home inspections, and he would tell me scary stories about the property. We would hear footsteps, and one time he was in a foyer of an old colonial home. A pot flew across. A lot of the times his equipment was moved. One time I was with him, we came back inside the house. I looked down on the floor. The door was open. There was 2 muddy handprints, and 1 muddy footprint for about 6 or 7 steps, as if somebody was crawling, because they didn't have a leg anymore. All of this was fun and games for me until I had the experience I'm about to tell you about. It happened a couple of years ago in a different location, Topsail Island, North Carolina. Topsail Island, it was a massive hub for pirates. People think that they can still see Blackbeard's ship on the horizon. People also think that it might be the last resting place of Blackbeard's treasures. Topsail Island has a significant amount of energy. I had none of this information. When my family booked a vacation in Topsail, they were renting the beach house. When my family booked this vacation, I did travel all the way from Pennsylvania. Down to Topsail, I was already pretty tired. The drive was a couple of hours. For 6, I think my boyfriend at the time. He picked me up, drove me all the way down. I slept a little bit in the car, but I was still really groggy. When I arrived at the beach house, it was not scary at all. It was a white house on stilts. The area surrounding was very swampy, but nothing that alerted me to anything. It was about 2-ish o'clock in the morning. I had just woken up. I was super groggy. I wasn't aware of what was going on. I'm locked on the door. My grandfather. He opened up the door. They both were whispering. They were tired. No one else was in the house. We said our greetings. It was cordial. Come in, okay? Thank you. Let's go to bed. My grandparents requested that my boyfriend and I sleep in separate rooms. They pointed me to the back room where I would sleep. It was through the kitchen. His room was closer to the front entrance and had a loft bedroom upstairs. I remember going into that room and feeling the heaviest weight I have ever felt in my entire life. This should have sent off some sort of ringer in my head, but it didn't. I was so tired. It was this really dense, thick smog kind of feeling. The feeling that hits you in the center of your chest, on your back, on your shoulders. I completely ignored it, and I had no other thoughts in my mind. Just unpack your stuff and get to bed. And I was unpacking these. These thoughts were not my own. I felt the energy of my past relatives. My great-grandmother was there. My great-grandfather was there. My great-aunt, they were there to protect me, to take care of me, and I just ignored it. I picked the bed, and that was closest to the back patio. I fell asleep. Enough time had passed. We are creeping into the 3 o'clock hour. We are creeping into the witching hour. I don't even know how long I was asleep. I was woken up by a pressing into the bed. I was not shook. I was not nudged. Nothing fell. I was pressed. Like somebody had put their hands on either side of my chest and pressed me into the bed. It was constant. It was rhythmic and very heavy. I could feel the sides of the pillow curl around my head. My head was being pressed into the bed. Of the pillow was touching the sides of my face. I've had sleep paralysis before. This is not sleep paralysis. I was hit with that overwhelming feeling. My relatives are there. It was a chatter. It was very noisy in my head. I remember being unable to move. I opened my eyes. It was an operation. 6 inches from my face, it was the blackest black, but also had outlines I could tell was a woman. Her eyes were sunken in. They were pitch black. Her hair was floating. It was gray. It was coming out at all ends like Medusa, like she was in water. Her mouth was open like a snarl, latching onto somebody wide open. Her teeth were all sharp. She had white markings on her face, 2 that were going vertical, 1 on her forehead to her hairline, 1 down her chin, and 2 horizontal on the sides of her cheeks, as if somebody had put their fingers in paint and smeared them across their cheeks. This encounter seemed to go on forever. It felt like time had stopped. I was absolutely paralyzed. I remember sitting there in complete and utter fear, staring at this figure. I remember feeling like my breath was taken out of my chest. She was pulling it from me. I remember trying to scream and not being able to. I knew that. My own essence was starting to get compromised. All of a sudden, at once, I remembered that what you do in these moments is you remind the entity that you are the one that's alive. I shut my eyes and I started screaming. I'm alive, you are not. I'm here, you're not wanted here. All the while, I felt like my family was there. They were fighting this with me. It was completely chaotic and not of my own imagination. Suddenly, she was gone. The chatter stopped. The pressing stopped. I could breathe again. I could talk again. I ran into my boyfriend's room at the time. I remember saying to him, I either had a very vivid dream or I just saw a ghost. He had also had his own apparition that he experienced at a different time and a different location, and he went, oh, okay. Well, let's go to bed. I remember going to bed that night and not believing it. The next morning, I woke up and I told my family. I was very vague about it. They joked about it and went, oh, maybe it's haunted. And I was like, okay, maybe, and we moved on with our day. They didn't take me seriously at all. Even though my grandfather had had experiences in his past, as well as my grandmother. She even captured an apparition in Fredericksburg with her camera sitting in a pew. My family is relatively sensitive, but we have never dabbled with anything that was dark, deliberately messing with us in any way. We went out, learned all about the pirates and tops and everything. That night, we as a family were playing Monopoly. The kitchen table was right next to my bedroom door. It was just fine. We had lots of laughs. And my grandmother said, okay, I'm gonna go to bed. And my boyfriend was like, okay, I'm just gonna go to bed. It's just my grandfather and I in the kitchen, cleaning up the board. He goes to my door. He stops and he stares. He looks back at me and says, you're right. The pressure changes at night. And I went, okay. Well, I'm not going to spend the night there. I'm not going to sleep in that room. Never again. He went, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. And I spent the night within my boyfriend's room, who had a twin bed. It wasn't an ideal situation. The next morning I wake up, and I hear my grandmother from the top of the stairs say in almost a joking way, Baka saw the ghost. And Baka is the name that I call my grandfather. I went, what? She was joking. But my grandfather, he was really shaken. He comes downstairs. He says at about 3 a.m, he was woken up by being pressed into the bed. This is a detail that I did not tell him. When he woke up, he kept his eyes closed and he turned over to my grandmother, who was to his right. He said annoyingly, Pat, why? Why are you waking me up? She's still kind of asleep. Doug, I'm not doing that. In that moment, he hears his wife's voice next to him. He opens his eyes. He sees a tall, black, shadowy figure in a top hat, sitting in the chair at the foot of the bed. He said to her then, who is sitting in that chair? When she woke up, he turned to her. It was gone. I decided to sleep in the same room as my grandmother. I remember having the light on the whole time. and having this unmistakable pressure surrounding me, constantly like chatter in my head, static around me. The energy was off, and my eyes were fixated on the foot of the bed. The moment that 3 a.m. passed, I turned over, looked at the clock, and I think it was 3:05, 3:10. Suddenly I was able to fall asleep. We told the owners of this house what had happened. They said, "Oh, you've never had any ghost encounters before." So I put it to bed, whatever that was. That was very much real. It became my ghost story. During COVID, I was flipping through some streaming service. There was some documentary style on sleep paralysis. They showed a picture of a sleep paralysis demon. Called the Old Hag, it was an artistic rendering, I think done over 100 years ago, and I froze. It's exactly what I had seen that night. There are other renderings of the old tag. That didn't quite fit the bill, but this one did. The sunken black eyes, the open mouth, the vampiric teeth, the floating gray hair, and the pressing on the chest, and it sent shivers up and down my spine. I found out that there are predominantly 2 sleep paralysis demons that have been known throughout centuries, throughout millennia, and across the world. Everybody's stories are exactly the same. It is pressing into the bed, stolen breath, something staring at you. The old hag sits on your chest, and the other one is called the Shadow Man. Shadow Man stands at the foot of your bed. He's oftentimes seen wearing a top hat. Putting this together, I realized I had seen the old hag. And the following night, my grandfather had seen the Shadow Man. We had no previous experience or knowledge of this. We were just 2 people that have had paranormal experiences before. Maybe these demons latched onto us that night because we were open. I have made certain that I am not as vulnerable as I was. That night, I found out that some people have had recurring visits from these demons, and it often happens because they are so vulnerable. I don't know if it was just age, but I have been way more receptive to the paranormal. I can see things, apparitions, and Elisa's story continues right after this. Stay with us. My ex-partner I was living with a couple of years ago, he was a big skeptic when I told him this. He would shrug it off. One night, I was really trying to understand, what is this? Is this something that I have now? What is this? I was woken up by him screaming in bed, shrieking. I turn over, I see him. He pushed himself up on the bed, trying to get away from something. He was staring at the door. He told me I saw a tall, black, shadowy figure standing in the doorway with a hat on. I don't know if he experienced the Shadow Man at that one point, but ever since then, he's only had brief experiences with hearing his grandfather, his grandmother. One time he saw his grandfather in a car door, but he's really had nothing significant since then. There was an apparition attached to an old, vintage vanity of mine that I've had for years. It was an elderly woman. This person was in my house at the same time. We looked up and he went, "It's a woman. Older woman, tall." I went, "White hair, Victorian." He went, "Yes. She's good, though she's just lost." I have actually been able to help a friend who lost her husband, unfortunately, to suicide. This was completely unintentional. I was chatting with her at a pool party. She started opening up to me, and suddenly her past husband was there. I was able to tell her things about him that she had not told me. I knew where he was touching her and how he was touching her. she started breaking down and crying. I don't know if that experience with that demon changed something in me that made me more open. But you bet I sage my house every day. I don't ever sleep on my back anymore. I just don't want to recreate that night. But it does seem that once these sleep demons enter your life, you become a little bit more attuned to the paranormal, I guess. Just had a lot of significant encounters since then. I used to live by an old iron mill, and I watched my dog get spooked by something, and at the same time I felt that pressure. The other night, I watched my other dog, alert to the corner of a room where we have kind of an altar for my deceased dog that just passed. I watched him stare in that corner and alert to it, try to smell the air, and once again, I felt that pressure, but it was positive. When it passed over me, I felt a wind on my face. I just have a lot of these experiences nowadays, that it seems kind of normal. That veil has been thinned in a way. Still to this day, I haven't had any more encounters with her. I don't want to have any more encounters with her. Maybe I wasn't the right kind of energy she wanted to feed off of. People will chalk it up to, oh, you were sleeping, and if you do some research on it, people don't actually know what sleep paralysis is. They don't understand why it happens. If someone has experienced sleep paralysis before, they know that it's completely different than being manipulated and seeing a demon. That was very different. I don't know if I can find that picture, but if you Google old hag demon, somebody put this depiction in a nurse's outfit. It's like blue-purple colored is the hue of the painting, just the way that her mouth is open and her hair is standing on end, and how she's touching whomever she's sitting on. It's very similar to what I experienced. I don't know the origin. We have all of our theories on what demons could be. My personal theory is that demons are spirits that are stuck, that have been stuck for so many years. They become poltergeist and become demons. That's just my personal theory. Whoever the old hag and the shadow man are, they are ancient. They are millennia old. If you do some digging, you can find that there are encounters that people have had that are centuries old all across the globe. For me, that just validates it even further. Have you ever experienced sleep paralysis? Let me know in the comments or through Instagram. I'll leave my contact information in the description of this episode. I'm on there as Edwin Cove. That's EDWINCOV. And if you have a story that you want to share, head on over to True Scary Story. Communications subscribers, I'll talk to you in the next episode. And thank you, everyone that has tried Scary Plus over on Scary Plus. I really appreciate your support. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. See you soon. 34. Real life nightmare. Life inside a haunted house. My name is Ariel. I grew up in a haunted house for 14 years in Richmond, British Columbia, Canada. I moved into the house in 2005. I was 7 years old. From the very beginning, this eerie feeling. I felt like somebody was watching me. Like there was always something waiting around the corner. Every time I walked into another room, I was scared somebody was going to be there. Something was going to be there. My parents, they always chalked it up to, oh, we're just living in a bigger house now. You're just getting used to it. I don't know, I always felt something was weird. I would start seeing shadows or figures. Oftentimes when I was in my room, I could see a shadow of feet underneath my bedroom door. it would just all of a sudden walk away. It wouldn't vanish, I would see it walk away. I would go and open my door, thinking that my parents were there or something. There's nobody there. Sometimes I would even hear creaking outside my door, like footsteps. A lot of nights there would be this really tall, looming shadow in the corner of my room. I would wake up in the middle of the night and see this super tall shadow that stretched from the floor all the way to my ceiling. Sometimes it was in one corner, and sometimes it was in another. It was in the shape of a tall, lanky man. I would look at it in the middle of the night, just trying to not see it, just trying to convince myself it's not there. There's nothing there. I was often paralyzed. I couldn't move. I'd hid under my blankets and hoped that I could go to sleep. Some nights it was there. It really haunted me. I would also hear footsteps. Most nights, I would hear them walking away from my door in my room. Too, sometimes they would wake me up. I'd be in my bed asleep, and I would hear a shuffling noise, with creaking along my floor, as if somebody was standing right next to me. I didn't want to turn around, look and see what or who was there, because of the footsteps. I couldn't be in my room alone in the silence at night. In order to sleep, I would have to turn the radio on, or some sort of music on. I needed to just drown out any noises that were happening during the night, along with the footsteps and the shadows. The mirrors in my house, I would see figures in mirrors. They would dip behind walls. One time, I was standing in my front entryway. We had a mirror there. Behind me would be our dining room. You could see part of it, and then the rest was behind a wall. I was putting my shoes on, and then I stood up. I was facing the mirror, and the mirror was showing the dining room behind me. I saw a girl. She was young, probably around 12 or 13, but she had raggedy, messy, matted hair and this ripped white dress. It was all dirty. I saw her walk into my dining room. It was so vivid, I thought to myself, oh my God, who's in my house right now? I remember just rushing into my dining room to be like, hello. There was nobody there. I went to go speak to my parents and I said, hey, who's this girl in the house? Did you invite somebody in it? Does she need help? Or what's going on? They just had no idea what I was talking about. I told them I was in the entryway. I saw her in the mirror. She walked into the dining room. My dad is the biggest horror fan in the whole entire world, he just thought. Oh my God, that's really cool. You actually saw her. That's so cool. He was just fascinated. Meanwhile, I'm just terrified. For the entire time that I lived at that house, my best friend at the time refused to sleep over unless I covered all of the mirrors in my room with towels or blankets every time she came over. She kept seeing figures and shadows in them that weren't there, that creeped me out even more. It validated me. But I thought, okay, at least maybe I'm not crazy. I am actually seeing these things. But at the same time, I was like, well, my friend gets to go home and I have to live here. I remember all of my friends telling me, when they would come over, they felt uneasy, unwelcome in my house. As soon as they stepped into my house, they felt like they shouldn't be there, like they weren't allowed to be there. They just shouldn't, which was also disheartening to hear. I used to suffer from insomnia as a child. I had nightmares in that house, a recurring one that I would have. It was from the point of view of an intruder in my house, almost as if they were giving one of those realtor tours on camera. but 1,000 times more ominous. They would just slowly glide through my house. I'd do a circle in my living room, and then go down the hallway. Very slow, it always took place at night. There was never any noise or sound associated with it. It was just vision. It would always end up outside my bedroom door. It would open my bedroom door, but I would never go in. The worst part of those nightmares in particular was I knew that I was dreaming. I was awake in the dream, but I knew that I was dreaming, and I physically could not wake up. I would always try to will myself wake up, and I physically could not. I felt stuck. I remember thinking, I'm never going to wake up again. The nightmares, they were so common. I had to hang 3 or 4 dream catchers in my room. I don't really know if they worked, but it made me feel a little bit better at least. I knew I'm going to have a nightmare tonight. I don't know what it's going to be. It's either going to be about a natural disaster, where my whole family dies, or it's going to be somebody intruding in my house. And it was just always so creepy and terrifying. I would watch doors open and close by themselves, or I would hear them in the house. Worst of all was my bedroom closet door. My closet door was on an old rusty hinge, and the track was also old. It could wake me up. Many nights I would be having a nightmare. When I would wake up from the nightmare, I would sit up and see that my closet door was open. Sometimes it would be wide open. Sometimes it would just be a crack. One night, I woke up from one of those horrible point of view, intruder nightmares, where the person had opened my bedroom door. And I remember waking up. My bedroom door was open. I looked at my closet door. It was also open. I ran to my parents' room. I woke them up and I said, "Why did you come in my room? Did you open my door, my closet door? What is going on? This isn't funny." I was just terrified, crying, hyperventilating, and eventually they calmed me down, and my mom ended up coming to sleep in my bed with me so that I could actually sleep. It's one of those experiences. I remember it to this day. I remember the exact feeling I had. A pit in your stomach again. Something is around the corner. Something is waiting for me. It felt so ominous and evil. It didn't feel like it had good intentions. The rest of Ariel's story continues right after this. Stay with us. None of my other family members experienced it. To the level that I did there were a couple times, where we all saw doors violently swing open. But nobody was as terrified as I was. Nobody else was having these dreams. Nobody else's doors were swinging open. I felt targeted. I remember the worst. Absolute worst incident, though, that still haunts me. I was 10 or 11. I was often homesick from school, because I was barely sleeping. My parents had just left for work 5 minutes earlier, and my brother was already gone on his way to school. Whenever everybody left the house, I immediately would go downstairs, just to be in the family rooms, so I could be close to an exit door if I got too scared. I came downstairs into this hallway, between the kitchen and the living room. I remember seeing my cats in the hallway. I bent down to say goodbye. Morning, give them some pets. As I bent down, I heard a closet door open from upstairs. It wasn't mine because it wasn't creaky. I looked back at my cats. Both of their ears were completely folded back. They were very upset they had both snapped their heads to look straight upstairs, where the noise came from. Then I heard heavy footsteps thumping on the carpet, coming down the hallway towards the top of the staircase. Along with these thumping footsteps, that sounded as if someone was wearing heavy. Work boots was this horrible, sinking, all-encompassing feeling that locked me in place. I could not move. I felt paralyzed, like in my intruder dreams where I couldn't wake up. Then I hear the footsteps start thumping, one by one down the stairs. I am directly to the left of the staircase. They were halfway down the stairs. I snapped out of it, and my only thought was, I need to run. I sprinted to my neighbor's house. I was in my pajamas. I told my neighbors someone just broke in my house. They're in my house right now. She offered to call the cops, and for some reason I was like, no. I want to call my parents, but I called my dad. He pulled like a U-turn on the highway, sped all the way back. He was only 5 minutes away. Anyways, thankfully, him and my mom get home, and they rush into the house, and they start calling out for anyone in the house to come out, that they're going to call the cops, that they're on the way. I refused to go into the house. It was a good hour before my parents had convinced me to come back in, because there was nobody in the house. They checked every single closet everywhere. Nobody's there. It's empty. I finally went back in. I told my dad again. I heard a closet door open. They came out of a closet upstairs, and he's checked all the closet. There's nobody in there. He took me upstairs to open and shut the closets and identify which one. I heard as soon as he opened my brother's closet. I was like, that's the one. It's my brother's closet, he was like. That's weird. There's no way this could have opened. It was shut when he came upstairs. I refused to be alone in the house. For 6 months afterwards. We knew, okay, nobody actually broke into the house. My parents were trying to explain it away. I started thinking when my parents got into the house. It was all locked except for the front door. From the inside, if there was an intruder, they couldn't have gotten out from any other door. If they had come out, the front door took like a special force to close, because they had put some weather stripping on it, or something. Nobody, not even close family friends, were able to close it. Only me and my family knew. It takes practice closing it. That's when I started getting even more scared, because I thought, okay, I am not crazy. I was not dreaming. Something happened. I don't know what it was, but what if I hadn't snapped out of it? And I just sat there and waited for whatever it was to get down the stairs and reach me. And it's still to this day. Every time I talk about it, I'm looking over my shoulder, and I still get these horrible chills. Thankfully, that only happened once, and I lived there for 10 or 11 more years before I moved out. But that definitely was not the end of the incidents. Shadows, seeing things in mirrors, lights turning on and off, that continued up until I moved out in the middle of the night. I used to hear somebody messing with the beads outside of my door, and I would hear clicking on my door. Some nights I would open my door. Nobody was there. Cats were not there. They were fast asleep on my parents' bed. I would be in my room upstairs. I would hear my mom call my name, run downstairs and be like, "Yeah, what do you want?" she always said. "I didn't call for you. What are you doing down here?" My dad did experience a lot of things in that house. He didn't admit it to me until a couple of years before I moved out. He saw figures and shadows flitting. From one room to another, he heard my name being called, sometimes by my brother, sometimes by my mom. He also had lights turn on and off in a lot of rooms that he was in. He actually had a piece of paper thrown at him. It was whipped from the coffee table into his face. The only thing my mom actually ever experienced was she would have things go missing. They would miraculously show up somewhere else. One time her wallet went missing. It was in her purse, obviously. My dad was looking for it all day. So was my mom. I was looking for it too. I went downstairs. Her purse was in the center of the living room. Her wallet was sitting right next to. It went to hold my mom, and I was like, "Your wallet's right here. What are you talking about?" She was white in the face. She was like, "Okay, I'm going insane." I thought that they were playing a trick on me. One time, her credit card went missing. She found it just balanced on top of her wallet. Later on in the day, none of us took it, but she would just find stuff balanced on top of her stuff, or in just a very convenient location. They tried to look up the house history, and nothing was found. There were no documented deaths in the house in Canada. It's not legally required for realtors to disclose, or even document if deaths occurred in a house. The only places that keep those records are the police department, and again, that information you can't really get unless you're related to whoever passed away. We never found anything. But I do remember when my parents were getting the keys for the place. The previous owners were there. We were just having a chat with them and saying, "Thank you, we're gonna love this house and everything." My dad, he was offering his condolences because the guy who lived there, his wife had passed away fairly recently. A year prior, my dad asked him "Oh, I'm so sorry about that. It's really tough. I hope that she was comfortable where she was." The previous owner of the house was quite cagey about where she was when she passed away. He just said, "Yep, she was comfortable." He had mentioned she hated hospitals. So we were like, was she in the house? It's possible that she passed away in the house. I know a lot of people pass away at home. It's just what happens. But I just know the house was built in 1970. It wasn't ridiculously old or anything. Whatever it was just didn't have good intentions because of how it made me feel. You might hear a door open or a door close or a light flicker, and you might think, "Oh, maybe that's just my family member visiting me." But for me, it was the feeling of dread. You can share your own story and get in touch with me over at True Scary Story Com. And up next, check out our other shows from Scary FM. A link to them in the description of the episode. Ad-free versions are available in our Scary Plus membership, which is free for 2 weeks and then 4. $99 a month after that. You can cancel anytime. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story, The Ghost in the Nightgown, A Mother's Paranormal. My name is Edwin, and here is Fatima's true scary story. I always felt and sensed and saw things that not a lot of people would see. I came to understand later in life that it actually is something that runs in my family. I have a very religious family. Both sides are Islamic, so in the Islamic faith, there's a thing about jinn. And my mother would always chalk it up to the devil, or the darkness just manifesting into something that is playing tricks on you. So as a child, I would sense things. I often felt dismissed, and I think that at some point, I just stopped seeing things. But my real story begins when I was pregnant with my daughter in 2007. Everything just amplified. All of my senses just increased in a way that was overwhelming. I could feel energies around me. I could feel eyes on me at nighttime. I never really talked about it. My husband had no idea at the time, and it was something that I wasn't really familiar with. And then we fast forward a bit, and my baby is born. I brought her home, and for like a good month, things were quiet. And then all of a sudden, I started seeing shadows. And I started seeing orbs out of my peripheral vision. I'm extremely sleep deprived. I'm waking up every hour and a half to 2 hours to feed my baby. And needless to say, petrified to go to sleep. On one specific afternoon, I decided to take a nap with my daughter at the same time because of these, like, weird feelings I had. I didn't love leaving her in her nursery, so I kept her in the co-sleeper. That was attached to the side of my bed. I fell asleep with her. I woke up and got up to go to the restroom and walked to my bedroom door. Right there, standing in the bedroom door, is a little girl. I would say she's about 7 years old. She had a headband on. She had these little baby doll shoes. The minute I saw her, I lost my mind, and I rushed over towards the bed so I could be next to my daughter. When I looked at my bed, I was still laying in it. And then the minute I got that realization, it was like I whoosh back into my body. I get up out of the bed and walk towards the door, and I don't see her there. And I feel obviously a sense of relief. I could chalk this up to sleep deprivation, nightmare, whatever, and I walk through my door, and the minute I walk through the door, all of my hairs, like on the back of my neck, my scalp, my whole body, he's in full-blown goosebumps. Whoever that was is here. I can feel her. I came to realize later on that that was astral projection. So I guess I was seeing this child on the astral plane, but at the time I had no idea what that meant. My family is very religiously complex, and it was complicated. I didn't even know really who to pray to. One night, I did put her in her crib in her room, and we had the monitor. But they're not the video monitors, it's the audio only. So that night, I went to bed with no real issue. All of a sudden, I started to feel a ruffling at my feet, and I was still partially asleep, but aware that it was happening. It felt like a fur ball, almost like I had a pet. But I did not have a pet at the time, just running through my feet. I started to come out of sleep. On the voice monitor, I hear an inaudible female child speaking from my daughter's room. Of course. I spring out of bed at that moment, and I'm like, crap. She's here. And I run into my daughter's room. And as I'm running to her room, my daughter starts screaming. So it prompted me to think that she definitely sensed that girl was there. I go in her room. I take her out of her crib. It's probably about 2:30 in the morning at this point. And I'm like, breathe in, breathe out, everything is fine. You know, justifying it away like it's a nightmare. You're tired. You've been through a lot. Just like sit in the rocking chair, and I'm rocking her, and I'm feeding her, and I'm just like starting to calm myself down a little bit. And then I see it's like a dirty, blue-colored, circular orb at the other side of the room. In my mind, so I'm not seeing this with my eyes, I'm seeing the image of that child. All of the hair stand up in my body, and I start to feel like a cold draft just starting to come over me. So, I take my baby out of the room, and I go in the bedroom. It was like, that's it. I'm not putting her in that room, and we fall asleep. I still struggle when I speak about this story, because it freaks me out so much. I kept it in for a while, and those are the 2 times I actually saw her. But I sensed her often, and it just got to a point where I was like, I need to talk to someone about this, and hopeful that they won't think I'm not. So the choice of people was a friend of mine that I used to work with. I called her and blubbered to her. Just all of my experiences. And dusting it with like, I know you think I'm crazy, but this is what's happening. And she told me that she knew of a medium. That was actually someone that she worked with at one point in time. So she gave me her number, and I didn't even skip a beat. I called her right away and asked if we could meet. We met at a local place near my apartment where I lived, and she kind of asked me not to give her details because she wanted to have a clean reading. When she got there, she kind of knew I was in a state of distress. She finally came to the apartment with me shortly after, and she entered through everywhere. In the minute she got to my room, she told me, I sense a little girl here, and she has been with you for a very long time, and she feels like she's got a bit of envy because you have this child that you're focusing all of your attention on. My entire life, I never recalled ever seeing a little girl, but I always felt like even when I was alone, that I was actually not alone. She did a lot of sage. She did some banishing type things like brought in the white light and, demanded that the child leave. And after that, it started to calm down. Like I didn't really feel her presence anymore. But it was definitely the entryway into other visitations. The entity of a little girl was only the start. Fatima is about to meet what she refers to as the woman. Her story continues stay with us. We've rented since we had our children, and I'm currently living in the fourth place that we've rented. The one common theme is this woman. I was sleeping, and I started to come out of a state of sleep. I saw this woman standing at the foot of my bed. She was wearing a white nightgown, but her hair for me was completely covering her face. So I couldn't see her face. I tried to move, tried to scream, and I couldn't. And I came to realize later, this was sleep paralysis. She was standing there. She feels threatening. Desperate, she feels. Sinister. And she's not a comfortable energy to be around. The next morning, I wake up finally. I guess I went to sleep, and I go into the kitchen. And I'm starting to make breakfast. And my 7-year-old daughter comes downstairs, and she proceeds to tell me that she was just upstairs, and she saw a woman with the same description walking down the hallway. To get that overall feeling, when your child confirms that, what actually happened to you was, something is jarring. We're in the same house, I'm having another. Well, it's a nightmare first. And I end up in a location in dreamland, where it's a house. She just pops up in my dream. I immediately sense that I'm in her domain, and I'm feeling very uncomfortable, and I want to leave. I'm trying to run, trying to scream. I can't do any of those things. So my eyes start to open when I woke up from this dream. She was at the foot of my bed, and I couldn't move for a good couple of seconds. Wake up the next morning after sleeping after that, and my second child is in the kitchen with me again, and I'm getting food ready. Almost simultaneously to me, feeling goosebumps on the back of my neck. My daughter, who is 3, because it's my youngest, she goes a woman, and she describes her with a white dress and long, black hair just ran behind you. Again, that feeling overwhelms me. I'm in my bed. I'm completely frozen on my bed. And she's at the foot of my bed. And this time she climbs up the bed, like from my feet all the way up in, like a spider, like movement, and then comes on my chest and starts inhaling. The thing that wakes me is my daughter, screaming from her bed, breaks me out of the sleep paralysis. I run into her room, and she proceeds to tell me through tears and shaking that she just had a terrible dream about me. and a woman on top of me sucking my breath. This happened to me 2 weeks ago. I would say I believe it was the same woman, but she appeared in a very different way. I was having sleep paralysis. My door was open. It's dark, mind you. There's no lights. I could see a darker darkness. I can't describe it. It's like blacker than the darkness. Right outside of my doorway in the hallway. So, not in my room, but right outside. She was crouched down, frog-like with her head sort of tilted to the left. Jesus, I saw her. I lost my mind and my body. And then, as I was pulling myself out of the sleep paralysis, there was this sudden whispering into my right ear. It didn't sound like just one person. It sounded like 7 or 8 different sounds in my ear, and I just woke up. I fully believed that that was the same person or entity. But she just didn't appear to me in the way she normally does. My daughter was sick. We were laying in my room, in my bed, watching movies. And it was just like, nursing her to health, so to speak. And she had to go to the bathroom. So she gets up out of the bed, and I'm still sitting in the bed. I pause the movie. She gets to my door before she gets into the hallway. She does that sound. I'm in my office now, and I can see my bed from where I'm sitting. So she was looking in my office, where I'm currently sitting, and said that she saw a woman with a white nightgown and black hair, except the difference is, this woman's eyes were glowing yellow. Inside, I'm freaking out. Outside, I'm like, everything's fine, you just go in the bathroom. And I muster up the strength and come into my office. And it is very cold in my office. And so I just come in here and I don't know where I had this strength, but I just firmly asked it to leave. And not scare my child, get out of my house. You are not welcome here. And you do not approach my child. And it was like, immediately felt this sense of lightness in the room. It just kind of dissipated. But what I want to mention is, my dog was upstairs when this happened, and my dog was growling right before I said that. And now my dog will not come upstairs on her own. And this was months ago if she comes upstairs. I have to carry her up here. She won't come upstairs on her own since that day. Fast forward, I'm with my brother, taking him to a Halloween scary thing. And in the spirit of Halloween, we're talking about the paranormal. My brother is very analytical type of mind. This is not a conversation that we have frequently. I proceed to tell him the stories about this woman, and he cuts me off and says, I've seen her. And I said, what the hell are you talking about? And he says that my mom was away visiting in Egypt. He was living with her at the time, and he says in his peripheral vision, he sees what look like long, dark hair and a white, like nightgown charge towards him. In his peripheral vision, he looks to his left, he sees nobody there. He continues back to do what he was doing. He sees it again, the woman charging to his left. I've come to realize that he's actually had a lot of experiences also. But this was the first time that I ever knew that he had experiences like this. So now I was talking to my aunt, and she was mentioning some of her experiences in life. She started speaking about the same woman, but her theory is that it's her sister, who is my aunt who passed away from cancer in 1999. It's her spirit, but that she's not rested. She's angry, and the reason she feels that way is because her child had nightmares of my aunt, looking unlike herself, and towards the end of her life, she did not have any hair, but she did not have black hair in her life. It was like dark brown, but but she always wore a really long white nightgown because it was comfortable for her in her end days. But my cousin had a nightmare about her. She grabbed his arm, and when he woke up, there was bruising on his arm from her. My aunt was a very strong, beautiful, successful woman, and she did a lot in her life. She did a lot of good in her life. But I think that she had such a zest for life that I think she was angry that her life was essentially being taken from her, from cancer. She has a house in Virginia. It's still there, my family members that do go. They do hear screaming in the night. They feel her presence. There was a specific instance where a lot of family would come from Egypt and stay at this house together. My aunt was there, my mom was there, and my other aunt, that's deceased. Her grandchildren were there and they were all sleeping. My aunt heard screaming in the middle of the night, like a moaning screaming. They all ended up in the hallway saying, "Did you hear that? Did you hear that?" I cannot step foot into that house ever again. Share your story with our community by going to truescarystory.com. Free versions of this show are available on Scary Plus, and you can try it out for free. Links to this and to get in touch with me are in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story, Voices in the Night. I was living with my mom and stepdad at the time. In their house, me and my mom. We were going through a period where we were kind of just lost with our religion. In spirituality, we had always been spiritual. But at this time, we both just felt a disconnect from everything. That's when everything started to manifest. The first incident was with one of my friend. We were on the porch one night, talking about how the summer had started, how we had just graduated. All of a sudden, we hear someone walking out the front door. So we look up. We see my mom. We assume she's taking out the garbage or doing something in the garden or something like that. We go back to talking, and not even a minute later, we hear the front door open again. We see my mom. We were looking at each other in disbelief. She asked, "What's wrong?" We almost scream at her like, "How did you get out here so fast?" What happened? She kept denying and be like, "No, I was not out here. I was inside. I was in the kitchen. We just ignored it. Maybe it was just our eyes or our minds playing a trick on us." 4 days later, my friend was over again. This time, we were in my room. I was on my phone, not really paying attention, but I was listening to what she was saying. All of a sudden, she went silent. I look up quickly. She has this mortified look on her face. I ask her what's wrong. What happened? She's sitting on the foot of the bed, looking at the edge, and she won't say anything. I finally look to see where she's looking at. I see a dent. Someone was putting pressure on the bed, or sitting on the bed. I was confused. 2 weird things have happened this week. That night, everyone had gone to sleep. My friend had left. It was probably around 1:32. I was thirsty, so I went downstairs to go fill up my water bottle. It was in my bedroom, the bathroom, and the bathroom was facing the bottom of the stairs. I walked 2 steps to the stairs. I'm about to walk down. I see this lady at the bottom of the stairs. She's 6 foot, maybe even taller. She took up most of the wall. She had dark hair, and she had this white dress. It had frills at the bottom and a short sleeve. I ran back into my room, closed the door. The next morning, I bring it up to my mom, and I tell her, "There's something going on in our house. I don't know what's going on." She brushes it off. She's like, "No, It's just our ancestors, don't worry. You'll be fine. In my gut, I knew that wasn't the situation. A few days later, after my mom and I talk about this, and she brushes me off, it's maybe 2:30. Closer to 3 this time. I'm downstairs in the kitchen. Our kitchen was attached to a hallway. That LED to the front door. I was in the kitchen, and something was just telling me to look behind me. I look, and I see the woman from a couple nights ago. I turn away, quickly, look back, and she's gone. I was cooking something and I left it all on the stove. I ran upstairs. I was terrified. The next morning, my mom's like, "What happened? You left everything downstairs. Something's going on." And I'm like, "I told you, something's in the house." She says if something was here, I would be able to see it, or I'd be able to feel it. There's nothing here, trust me. It's just one of our ancestors. They're protecting us. I know it's something else, but she won't listen, so I try and forget about it again. One night, it was 3 a.m. I heard someone walking past my room. My parents, they're both. Not the type of people who would leave their room at night. They'd only really go to the bathroom. They wouldn't go downstairs for water or anything. Something just told me to go check on what it was. So I walk out my room. I see my mom walking down the stairs. In a quiet voice, I start saying, "Mom." I call her name 5 or 6 times as I'm doing that. I'm walking down the stairs trying to get closer to her when I am 1 step away from her, about to touch her. She turns around. I see her eyes. That's not my mom. The eyes were sunken in. You could tell it had no soul. I sprint up the stairs back to my room. I don't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I'm so spooked. I finally tell my mom, "You may not believe me, but something is in this house. We need to do something." She's like, "We can go see someone. They'll talk to us." My stepdad. He was friends with this man who was a babalawo, a priest of this religion called Aruba. We go to this man's house. He starts to do the consultation. My mom starts screaming and crying, wailing, screaming at the top of her lungs. I look beside her. She's pale. She's screaming. Her hair is in front of her face. I don't know what's going on. I leave the room. I can hear her screaming from outside. 15 minutes later, she finally stops the babble out, tells me to come back in the room. He starts explaining to us what happened. My mom, she let something into the house. This spirit, she was a woman who had committed suicide. She was depressed after losing her child in the house. He starts to ask my mom, "Can you think of something that you may have gotten, from a thrift store? Something that may have history?" She remembers that she was cleaning the basement, and something was drawing her to the back corner. There was this desk, was really heavy behind it. There was this door. In it, there was a bunch of heirlooms from the original owners, and their family, all their stuff was in this cubby. When my mom went in that room, she found this lamp or vase kind of thing. She took it out, and she put it in our living room. The Babalao, he realized, that lamp is what brought this woman to our house. As soon as that lamp came in our house, all these things started happening. My mom's energy completely changed. She went from being so energized to always wanting to sleep and always being so tired and so negative. She wasn't sleeping either. She was staying up until 3:30 every morning. Even my stepdad thought she was acting weird. He said that her personality had completely changed. The Babalao, he tells us, "I know what to do. I know how to get her back to the lamp. He does some things in our basement, some religious sacrifice or something. He eventually bounces her back to this lamp phase. That night, we threw it in the graveyard because he said that would be best, just as a precaution, to make sure it's away from our house. That night was the last time we ever saw or heard from that spirit again. And it wasn't the only time. My mom had invited something in never on purpose, in a house before this house. When my mom and my dad first got divorced, she had got this spirit board that she used with the pendulum. First, she started talking to people who she thought was her spiritual guides, guardian angels. They were telling her things she wanted to hear. We'll be here to protect you. You'll have more luck and love. We'll make sure to protect your daughter. Your daughter's going somewhere in the future. My mom, she was obsessed with it. Every day she was doing it. Over time. The messages just started getting super negative. One day, they told her, "We're gonna kill you. We're gonna burn the house down. We're gonna kill your daughter. We're gonna burn her in her sleep." At this time, my mom and we were getting into accidents. I was hit by a car. She had almost been hit by multiple cars. Dogs were attacking her out of nowhere. One time, our neighbor's dog, he was on a leash attached to the porch, and he just ripped out of it, and he ran across the street, jumped on her, and attacked her. Multiple dogs were doing that at the time, and we didn't really know what was going on. All we knew was that my mom was getting these messages, and it was dangerous. She decided to go back to Portugal, where she's from, to get advice from her family. She went to a medium there. She looked in her eyes, and she said, "Where is your soul? Your soul is at the back of you. Your soul's supposed to be in front of you. It's at the back of you. There's so much darkness around you. It's going to harm you and my mom at this point." She goes to see another person, just to make sure. To validate, the lady says the same thing. There's so much darkness around you. What did you do? Did someone do something to you? My mom finally comes back. We move in with one of my friends and his dad. My mom just had to get me out of that house. She was terrified that something bad was going to happen. During all this period, too, I was having bad dreams. I was seeing dreams with blood on the wall. I had started having suicidal thoughts, and I was 10 at the time. So I wasn't even thinking of any of that at that age. And I just suddenly started having these thoughts. When my mom and I moved to my friend's house, start using the spirit board again. His wife had died. She had also committed suicide when she was using the spirit board. The wife was telling her, like, "If you don't get out of my house, I'm gonna burn the house down." At this point, my mom's like, "We have nowhere to go, we have to move." We move in with my now stepdad for a few days. We're looking for a place. And my mom goes to the last medium she goes to before we move out. They tell her, "You have opened a portal. You using that spirit board opened a portal. And you let something in that's trying to harm you." And my mom realized that she had messed up. That week we packed our bags, moved to a new house. My mom kept in touch with the lady who lived upstairs, who was our landlord, the man who lived there after us. He lived there for maybe 2 weeks, and he apparently went crazy, packed his bags and left. Even the lady had to move out. No one could live there after that. My mom had let something in, but it had attached itself to the place after. She has completely stopped doing that. The religion we are in now doesn't really focus on that. We don't really talk to spirits in that way. She hasn't done anything like that for the past couple of years. Thankfully, everything's calmed down. If you have a scary story that you want to share, head on over to True Scary Story, and fill out the form. And if you want to support the show and listen completely ad-free, head on over to Scary Plus. Or check out the Scary Plus links in your app. Right now, thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon, everyone. See you soon, everyone. Please listen to the story, 3 Chilling Paranormal Encounters. My name is Edwin, and here are Diana's, Vanessa's, and Adrian's true scary stories. Growing up when I was little, we used to go to Mexico every summer. We are from the state of Juarez, Mexico. My grandparents used to own a plot of land. Technically, they still own it, but they passed away a few years ago. And so my aunts and uncles still live there. There's about 5 houses on that plot of land. Their main house and then the other 4 houses. My family's land is actually built on top of a cemetery. And so, there's always been different stories of things that they've seen, things that have happened. My dad owned the house that was located nearest to where this cemetery is. They would always hear banging on the walls. My mom, who is a non-believer of anything paranormal, one time stayed there, and she was woken up in the middle of the night with banging all on the walls, and it wasn't just on once, it was just all over the house, just banging all over the house. During breakfast time with everybody around, she's like, yeah, I didn't get good sleep last night because there was banging on the walls, Maybe something happened with the neighbor, and she was using the hammer. And they're like, no, that's actually very common in that house. As a matter of fact, my other uncle who lives a house over has also heard those bangings. And so he came out in the middle of the night to see who was, causing chaos out there. He brought some type of weapon out with him, just to make sure he had, something to protect himself with, because he really thought it was a person. And he said he went all around that house and did not find anybody there. My grandma had gone to a flea market out in Mexico, and she bought a dresser with an attached mirror to it at this flea market intended for my uncle. She took it to my uncle's house. They had it set up some time passed by. One night my uncle was asleep and something woke him up. He felt this uneasy feeling, like somebody was just looking at him. He woke up, and he was kind of scanning the room. It's dark. He can't really see anything. He's still half asleep, and in the corner of the room, he sees a little boy who's about anywhere from 8 to 10 years old. He's just looking at him, and he tries to call out to him to get his attention. Little boy is not moving. He's not doing anything other than just staring at my uncle, so my uncle decides to grab like his cover or a pillow to throw at him to, get a reaction out of this little boy to see what are you doing in my room? The little boy jumps from where he was to the dresser and disappears into the mirror. Fast forward maybe the next summer. My adult cousin and her son, who was at the time around that same age, went to Mexico to visit for the summertime. We all know we all go back home to visit for vacation. My uncle lends her his room so she could sleep in there with her kid in the middle of the night at around the same time. Her little boy starts shaking her mommy. Mommy, mommy. Wake up, there's a little boy. Oh, mijo. Go to sleep, go to sleep. You're dreaming, there's nothing there, mommy. Mommy. There's a little boy, and he's smiling at me, and his teeth are ugly. No, mijo. There's nothing there, go back to sleep. Finally, he gives up, and he goes back to sleep. During breakfast the next morning, My cousin is complaining of how tired she is because her little boy didn't let her sleep. And they are telling the story to my uncle, who's in a house that belongs to, and my grandma. And so my uncle and my grandma kind of just stare at each other because they know what happened to him. She goes on to tell them that, yeah, he kept trying to wake me up, that there was a little boy in the room, and that the little boy was smiling at him. And my uncle is like, well, that kind of happened to me too. He proceeds to tell her his story. Needless to say, my cousin and her son did not sleep there. The following night, that same dresser and mirror ends up in the possession of an aunt of mine here in the United States. My aunt, very superstitious. She had gone to see like a witch doctor at this time. The mirror and the dresser are put away in the garage. She knows the story of this mirror. Why she has possession of this mirror, I don't know, even though she knows the story. Anyway, she goes and sees a witch doctor for unrelated reasons. And this witch doctor gives her this little blanket, which is like a little pillow. A green one and a red one. One was intended for like luck, and the other one was intended for money. And she always carried these little pillows with her, in her purse. One day she was rummaging through her purse, and she notices that those pillows are gone. At the time, my aunt had, teenage sons. And so she kind of confronted them about it, and was like, hey, you guys were going through my purse. My little pillows are gone. Why were you guys going through my purse? They all deny. They're like, no, Mom. It wasn't us, we didn't do anything like that. They end up finding those pillows by the mirror, in the garage, and no idea how they got there. Once that happened to her specifically, that's when they're like, okay, no, we need to get rid of this mirror. Something is wrong with this mirror. We got it at a flea market. It's in Mexico, so something or somebody must have done something to this mirror that, would have caused, like, this little boy to get stuck in there. And so ultimately, that's what led to their decision to get rid of that mirror. Everything stopped, like there was no other occurrences with the little boy or anything going missing after they broke it. Essentially, we've always been scared that that land was built over a cemetery, because there's been other, like, small occurrences that have happened, but I think that's the creepiest one. This took place May of 2015. Me and my husband were going to New Orleans for the first time. We have a timeshare thing, so we were able to get a 2-story room. We were going to be there for 2 whole weeks. For whatever reason, they would not let us stay in the same room. For both weeks, we had to stay in one room for 1 week, and then they had to check us out and put us in another room for the second week. This happened the last Friday that we were there, on the first week, if that makes sense. When checking into the room at first, you're looking at it and it's so cool. It totally looked like what you would think New Orleans would look like. It had like brick wall. There was weird kind of paintings in there. And I remember even walking in there. I was taking pictures and showing the video and everything. Walking throughout everything. I remember walking upstairs and getting like a, I don't know about this. I brush it off. Because we were new arrivals for the first time. I was super excited. There was a second room in there too. I just didn't like it. I don't want to be in here by myself type thing. The last night that we were there in the first room, I knew that I was dreaming. Because I remember we were in the master bedroom. Like I said, this was like a 2-story room. I remember sitting up in my bed, and I kept hearing things. I felt like it was cabinets opening and closing. Opening closings and doors. Opening and closing, opening and closing. I knew no one was in our room. It was just me and my husband. I knew my husband was in the bathroom. I don't know how I knew that, but I knew that my husband was in the bathroom. I was sitting in bed, and I asked, "Hey, are you not hearing this?" When I said that, I felt something pull my leg. I freaked out. All of a sudden, I felt like someone grabbed both my ankles and pulled me down. When they pulled my ankles down, I lay flat on my back on my bed. When I woke up, I couldn't move. I couldn't move like at all. The only thing I could move was my eyelids. I was like, what is going on? I was in the exact same room we were sleeping in. So the first dream took place in the room. When I woke up and couldn't move, I knew I was in the room, and I knew. I could see my husband laying right next to me, in arm's length. All of a sudden, I remember 2 different things or entities. I don't know what they were, but I felt one hand on one shoulder and another hand on my other shoulder. They were holding me down. It wasn't hard, but I could feel them hold me down. The only thing I can remember is them looking, like the Monet painting of the screaming person. All I saw was they were like misty, and all I saw was like 2 eye sockets and a long face. I couldn't move anything but my eyelids. For the life of me, I just wanted for him to wake me up, because he was right next to me in bed. All of a sudden, I hear both of those entities. In my voice, in my own voice. I felt like they were making fun of me. I felt like they were mocking me. Like, how you can't talk, how you can't talk. I could feel myself wanting to cry. I just closed my eyes. I was praying to Jesus. I was praying to God, Holy Spirit. I was praying to everybody. My dad had passed 3 years prior. So I even called out to my dad like, "Dad, if you can hear me, please." I had called out even to my grandfather, my paternal grandfather who had died in 2012. I was like, "Please help me, please." As soon as I called out to my grandfather, within maybe 10 seconds, I woke up. I was able to wake up. I immediately woke up my husband, and I was like, I just had a bad dream. I didn't want to tell him everything, because I knew he was dead asleep. So he just comforted me. But I ended up praying for the next 20 minutes, and just thanking God that I was able to wake up from that dream. That was the scariest thing that I ever experienced. I ended up telling my mom at least a year later. She freaked that she was like, "What? Oh my God, I can't believe that happened to you." She totally believed me though. She's like, "I'm sorry that happened to you." I remember the resort that we were staying at was called the Quarter House. It was built in 1830. I know it was really old, and I thought that was really cool because I was like, oh my God, we're staying in a fairly old building. I love history of stuff, but I did not think that that was going to happen. I just thought it was cool because it was really old. If I would have known it was haunted, I would not stay because I'm like such a scaredy cat. Even to this day, I have dreams within dreams, but they're not like that, but they're not like that, but where I wake up like sleep paralysis. But I've had dreams within dreams. This happened to me 19 or 20 years ago. I'm 38 years old. I come from a Hispanic family, and we tend to be friends with our cousins because we have so many of them. I would hang out with a girl cousin of mine very often. One day, she invited me over. Her mom had got a new place. I hadn't been there. I took a bus across town to get to this address. When I got there, my cousin was there with her older sister. Right away, they're like, "Hey, glad you're here. We were just about to go to the store. Do you want to go with us?" I was done with the California heat. And I was like, "No, I'll stay here." And she says, "Great. My daughter, she's asleep. Keep an eye on her. We're just going to go to the corner convenience store. When we get back." They leave, and I stay there watching TV. As soon as they leave, the door closed. The little girl sits up and starts asking me over and over again, "Where's my mommy at? Where's my mommy at?" I would answer her every time. It's almost as if she just didn't hear me. Speaking to her, and would continue to ask. After a while, I just figured, I'm just going to watch TV. Sit here, little girl, still asking me the same questions. But it could have been 15 or 20 minutes. I hear the metal door, it swings open. Makes that sound that you hear on these doors. Then I can hear the wooden door swing open. Then I hear my cousin. She's laughing, as if they're joking. She says, "Ha, Joanna." I hear what sounds like a plastic bag landing on a wooden table. The exact sound you hear of a cheap corner store bag. I look at the little girl, and I respond to her. "Your mom's home." I walk into the kitchen. There's absolutely nobody there. The doors are closed. Everything's closed. There's nothing there. I walk right back to the room thinking, what did I hear? What's going on? The little girl's still sitting there, but now she's staring at me. She starts asking me all over again. Where her mommy's at, she's probably asked me 15, 20 times where her mom's at. In the same tone over and over again. A few minutes later, I hear the wooden door rubbing across the floor. I hear my cousin again laughing, and I hear her say, "Ah." F in Joanna. I hear the bag with the soda hit the table. I'm too scared to get up. I sit there for a minute. I'm not saying anything to a girl. She's still asking me for her mother. All of a sudden, my cousin pops her head around the corner. I jump up, run to the kitchen, and I tell her, "I heard that you guys came. But you weren't here." Both my cousin and her older sister just staring at me, like it's not a big deal. After I tell them what happens to me, they tell me when my mother gets home, "We want you to tell her what happened to you." An hour or two pass. My aunt gets home and she's not surprised. She starts telling me that when she first moved into that house, my aunt, at that time, she was a single mother. When they first moved into that house, she would constantly catch her daughter in her closet, going through the boxes making a mess. My aunt, getting tired of telling her to get out of the closet, she tells her, "What are you doing in there? Why do you keep going in my closet? And what are you searching for?" Her daughter looked at her and told her, "The little girl is telling me that there's toys in here. That's why I'm in here." She tells me she spoke to the owner as she asked him. "There's been weird things happening in this house. Has anybody ever said anything? Or told you anything the owner himself was like? I've had a hard time keeping this place rented. I have heard some things I don't believe too much. I haven't experienced anything myself." He never stayed there. He said that. There was a family that had passed away in that home. A mother and a father, and they had a daughter. They had passed away in that house. My aunt lived there for a number of years. But one thing that had happened to my aunt there, she was dating a man for a while, and they would go out. Sometimes he'd go out on his own. She'd stay home. One night, he had gone out with his friends. She stayed home. She had work. She was tired. She fell asleep in the living room on the couch. Late at night, she woke up to the sounds of somebody getting there. She saw the figure of who she thought was her boyfriend, coming home from a night out with his friends. She said, "I just glanced and told them, 'You're going to sit with me.' And she gave him space at the end of the couch. She saw this figure sit down. Later on, at 3 a.m, there was knocking at the door. She gets up, opens the door. It's her boyfriend, just getting home and being dropped off by his friends. I know other people that things happen to in that house. My sister has a story when she graduated high school. She took one of her high school friends to that house. My mother had gone to the casino with that aunt. This girl, she felt strange sitting in the living room. She kept glancing to her left, where there was a small bathroom. The door looked like it was trying to open. She couldn't hear anything, but the light was on, and then it was open. When she glanced back, the door was still open, but now there was a doll sitting on the sink, and face out of the bathroom. A lot of our family have known that things were happening at that house. I talked to one of my other cousins before I did this interview, and he was even like, "Yeah, everybody that's been there knows that. There's something weird going on at this house. Everybody doesn't experience the same thing there, but everybody there says that they can feel something there, watching you. You get this feeling as if something's waiting. It's waiting to do something to you." After that happened to me, I would feel uneasy in there. Years ago, I remember trying to look it up about the internet, probably 20 years ago when I was 19. I never really found anything. I know when I looked up the house, I know this house gets rented quite often, because it's not a very nice house. Super tiny. It almost looks like a studio with an extra room. I don't think people stay that long. My aunt was one of those people. She was older. She believes in God and everything. It's where she's like, "Watch. Just pray. Things will leave me alone." But she didn't want to stay there. After a while, she felt like something was trying to be on top of her, hold her down. She needed a struggle, and she got up, caught her breath and stuff. Like that. I had heard stuff like that from that house. I remember seeing an old house being remodeled, our neighbor's house. There would always be stories about this house being haunted. They would rent it. I never saw anything myself. What made me believe, I think, if at all maybe people do sense things, is the neighbors would always say, "This little house was haunted. It shared the property light with our house the day that we were remodeling it." I'm probably like in the 6th grade and I'm being nosy. I'm out there, all of a sudden I see that one of the contractor guys. He's like, "Hey, everybody stop. Go call the owner, 'cause we need to figure something out. They're telling me to go away." I'm like, "Number. I'm on my property, you can tell me. Go away." Under the house that'd been in that house. They had a cement floor. They had to redo it, 'cause they had cracked. When they lifted up the cement, I'm standing there when they lifted up the cement. There was a human skeleton. It still had clothes on, a flannel shirt and jeans. I remember clearly. I saw construction workers pick up the bones, throw it in the garbage, and continue working. The girls that lived in there, they would see things upstairs and hear sound. I don't know if maybe that has something to do with that, but that's what I saw at that home. When you're a kid, you don't think about these things. But as an adult, I can remember, 'cause it was such a big deal. Like I was like, "Oh my God, they found a dead person." But when I think back on what they were doing at that house, when I tell you they found him under the cement, the foundation. They didn't dig. He was in between the poured cement and the dirt. It wasn't like an old burial site or anything. If you picked up a broken piece of cement on the street, it was like right there. I remember seeing hair. It was old, and it bunched up. Almost a red, brownish color. Like bronze. That's what I saw. So it was like the skeleton that's still. It had hair there. It had a flannel shirt on. Obviously all beat up and the colors faded. But the jeans, I guess I don't know. I remember seeing the jeans. You think stuff like that would fall apart. They had holes in it, but it was still pretty intact. I remember him reaching for the leg. I had jeans on, but when he pulled, the bones that you have in your waist area, you can see them separate. The long leg bone was still in the pan. So then, they had to pick up the bones individually and throw them away. I remember looking up that. But later as an adult, I didn't know when that house was built, even where to start looking to even think anything. But how many more people are under cement slabs somewhere? This house was on a corner lot. My aunt owned this property. These are older neighborhoods in Fresno, where you had more land. At some point, my aunt, or whoever owned the house before her, they had built a small studio apartment right behind her house and to the right. They built a 2-story, 2-bedroom. It was shaped like a little square. They had built that there. One of my other aunts was staying in the house, right behind her, and they were renting the 2-story one. The reason why they had lifted the floor was because apparently the foundation of the house wasn't sitting right anymore. There were cracks on the walls. The house was shifting, I guess. They had to pour the cement on the base floor of the house, rip up the old stuff and throw it away, and then pour new cement. I remember in their living room right there, where they'd sit and watch TV all the time, was where that crack was. And that's where the body was under that crack. The foundation cracked where that dead body was. Up next, be sure to check out my other podcast called Scary Story Podcast. And if you're into more historical and mysteries, stuff like that, be sure to check out Horror Story. I'll see you over there if you want to support the show. Head on over to Scary Plus. Calm as always. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon, everyone. See you soon, everyone. Please listen to the story True Hauntings Growing Up with the Unknown. My name is Melissa. I live in a small town near Victorville, California. My whole life ever since I was 8 years old, I experienced my first paranormal story. As a vine older, I still had a lot of things happen to me. Seen things, heard things, felt different things. Everybody in my family says I have that sixth sense, that I just attract spirits. My grandma's house is in Juarez, Mexico. My dad grew up in that house. It's still in the family to this day. I was 8 years old. We were staying in the guest room. My mom, my dad, my siblings, my aunt and uncle. We were all staying in that spare room. That night, I could not go to sleep. I felt really anxious and scared. I didn't know why, and I remember putting a blanket over my head. But it was really hot. I felt like I had to do that. That's the first time I've ever felt that sensation, or felt that way. I was laying down, facing the curtain that they use as a door. As soon as I took the blanket off over my head, there was a man standing there against the doorway, a tall, slender figure wearing a hat, a trench coat, but it was just a shadow. I didn't see a face, just a shadow of a man standing there. I froze and then started crying. Everybody woke up, I told my mom. I saw somebody standing there by the doorway. Of course, when everybody looked, it was gone. Nobody was there. I didn't see anything the next day, but I don't even think I slept the next night. I just wanted to leave. I have an aunt who had seen that same man in that same room when she saw him. She said that he was kneeling as if he was praying. We're the only two that have ever seen him. My grandma. We said she always knew there was someone in that house, but it never bothered her. She never felt scared or threatened by it. My uncle, who lives in that house with my grandma, he would see things. He would feel like somebody was watching him. So a lot of people didn't like going to my grandma's house for that same reason. My dad did tell me when he had slept in that same room. He was falling asleep. He looked up on the ceiling. He saw a huge butterfly on the ceiling. My grandma always loved butterflies. We don't know who that could be, or if it's a family member. My grandma thinks it might be maybe an uncle of her. First, all I know about the house is that my dad grew up in it. There was one previous owner. There was a woman who got burned in that house, but the person I saw was a man. We still don't know who he is. I know there's been a lot of experiences in that house. My grandma passed away a few years ago. I went back after COVID and everything. It just feels different. It doesn't feel like whatever was there is there anymore. Growing up, I've had a lot of little, different instances and stories. When we first moved to the high desert, actually the first house we bought, a lot of things that would happen in that house. When we first moved in, my dad found a doll. It was made out of cloth. That was shoved inside a mason jar. It was closed. He took it out. He was in the pantry. He opened it. He thinks it was an innocent person that they had trapped in there. And in his way, he was setting that person free. He opened it up. I wouldn't say that's what caused all the things that would happen in that house. When I was younger, I would feel like somebody was watching me. I had to be in elementary school, maybe a 4th, 5th grade, when I was walking to that pantry, actually to grab something. I had my back facing the living room, towards the hallway where all the bedrooms were at. I just remember feeling this really cold sensation, as if something walks through you. My whole body just went cold. I froze. After I got out of that shock, I ran to where my mom and her friend were at, and I started crying. From then, I would always hear people talking or things, or whispers. I would hear my mom calling me. My mom's voice, and I would answer. Nobody was there. Nobody. It wasn't my mom. My mom used to have a lot of porcelain dolls as well. There was a ledge at the very top of the living room, and she had all these porcelain dolls there. I remember vividly laying down on the couch, looking up at this one doll she had in particular. She had curly blonde hair, blue and white dress. I remember looking at the doll. I was just staring at it. I remember the dog moving its head side to side, looking at me. We lived in that house up until I was, like in middle school. That's when we moved to a different house, in the same city. Just about in every house I've ever moved to, I've always experienced or seen something. Seeing something, hearing something. I started to believe, what if it is me? What if I am the one that everywhere I go, I just bring something with me? I had a friend, a really good friend of mine. I had gone over to her house. When I walked into her room, I felt this really heavy, uncomfortable feeling. I've gone to her house plenty of times, and I've never felt like that. But I walked in and I just wanted to get out of there. I just don't know why. And we left. Came back when I had gone back into her room. She was telling me that. some of the things that she had in her room. I noticed like new things. She had these monkeys that hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, that belonged to her friend who passed away. When she told me that, I felt this overwhelming sensation, and I think that's what it was, because she had some personal belongings of her friends that I just felt overwhelming energy of sadness. I just started crying, telling her all these things I felt, as if her friend had somehow channeled herself. Through me, I don't know. Like maybe a medium type of situation. It was very emotionally draining too. It does take a lot out of you. I didn't realize because I've never had that happen. The last big experience I really had, I would say, was back in 2019. I don't know if I was just going through a rough place in my life. My mom has always said, whenever you just feel very vulnerable, emotionally or mentally, that's when things try to attach themselves to you. There was my desk I had bought at Goodwill. Everybody knows me to be notorious in buying things, from antique stores, thrift stores, yard sales, and everybody always says, well, you always buy all these things, and you never know what could be attached to it. This desk that I bought, I still have it to this day. It's not in my room, but I still have it to this day. My bed is facing the wall. The desk is on the right-hand side of my wall. Everything's facing my door. I was having a lot of nightmares at that point. I've never been one to have sleep paralysis, but during that point of my life, I was having a lot of sleep paralysis. Every night, I was having really vivid, horrible nightmares. It was just odd. There was not a night that I could not go to sleep without having a nightmare or sleep paralysis. Could never actually rest. I would not turn off my light. I would leave sleep with my light on. Every time I fell asleep, it was almost this kind of sensation of, well, I know it's not going to be good sleep, because this is going to happen. Because it was just something that was just happening. Every night, I'll have a cousin, my cousin. She lives in Mexico. She had came with her sister. They were just staying a couple days with us. I never told her about what I was going through. I never told her anything about my room. The next day, my cousin. She had heard somebody trying to open the door. She woke up scared because she heard the door knobbing, but nobody was coming in. Her sister, she has a, you can say, sixth sense. She can pick up on things, or she knows things. She told me there's something in your room. I could feel it when I spent the night here. She had asked me, she's like, have you been having a lot of nightmares? Or have you just been feeling scared in your room? She confirmed my suspicion that there was something attached to a piece of furniture. When she told me that, I just was thinking, it has to be something that I've bought in, that I didn't have before. After she had told me that, she confirmed my suspicion. Okay, I'm not going crazy. These things are happening for a reason. There was one night I was laying in my bed and I thought I was awake. I remember looking over to the right, to my right-hand side of my bed where my desk is at, and I see a woman standing there by my desk. This lady, I didn't know who it was or who she was. She was looking at me with her black, shoulder-length hair, wet white lace wedding dress. She was wearing a mask, though, a tiger mask. When she noticed that, I realized that I was actually not awake. Then that's when she tilted her head. That's what really made me realize she sees me. She knows I'm aware and that I'm seeing her. After that, I just woke up. She is someone that was attached to that desk. I don't know who she is. But the weirdest thing is that after I actually saw her that night, I stopped experiencing any sort of nightmares or sleep paralysis. I still have that desk to this day. After that night that I had seen her, I didn't experience anything else again. At least, nothing major like that. I just never seen her again. I'm just curious still. I think about it to this day. Why is it that when I saw her, she's wearing like a wedding dress, or that she was wearing a mask, a tiger's mask, which is weird. I just to this day wonder why. Maybe she didn't want to be seen. I think it's just more of a curiosity that I have. To this day, I've had little things happen here and there. In the house I'm currently living in, where I hear people talking or things moving. Just hear noises in the house. It's not a consistent every time. But I will hear things here and there. I think it was last year I had seen him at my house. Actually, where I'm living at right now, in my sister's room. My sister had also says that she's seen him. I know I've looked it up. They say it's the Hat Man. So they say, I don't know if it's something a lot of people have seen. Some people have different names. They say they've seen this man. Tall, slender man. I had seen him about a year ago, when I had spent the night in my sister's room. We were sharing the same bed. And I had seen him by the doorway again, which is funny, because that's where I saw him the first time, when I was younger. That's really the only other time I've ever seen him, besides when I was little. That same night was the same thing. I was laying there, and I couldn't go to sleep. I just had this fence to look over by the doorway. I had seen him there again, just standing there. But this time he was actually in front of the door. He wasn't against the wall. He was actually in front of the door. But the weird thing is, I didn't feel scared. I just acknowledged that he was there. I had told my sister about it, and she's like, yeah, I've seen him a lot. He comes and goes. Would just show up here, and then I won't see him. So, I don't know if this particular person that we've seen is something that it's just maybe part of our family, or maybe I've seen him before. I just don't recollect, because when you're younger, growing up, there's a lot of things you don't remember. But I just think sometimes you just have that sixth sense where you can see, feel, and hear things that other people can't. I don't really think there's anything that surprises me. There's a lot of skeptics, or people that don't really believe in anything like that, but even then, it's one of those things that when you experience it, it's very real. You can share your own story with me over on True, scarystory.com, and if you want to support the show, try out Scary, plus you'll also get ad-free episodes. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon, everyone. See you soon, everyone. Please listen to the story, A Night at the Resort. My story takes place, June of 2022. It happened at Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, at a 5-star resort. We were invited by some of my husband's friends, and it was a quick 3-day vacations. We were excited we arrived. The resort was beautiful, picturesque. It was busy with summer travelers. As we checked in, the front desk informed us that there was a room ready for us on the first floor, but if we waited until 4 o'clock, they could offer us a suite with an ocean view. So of course, we were going to take that. We accepted the offer, and we decided to wait till 4 p.m. We hung out by the pool, had some snacks, just enjoyed the sun. At 4 p.m., we were given our key, and we went up to the suite. As soon as I walked in, I was like, something doesn't feel right here. I really don't know what it was. It just felt very cold, too much of a contrast from the sunny outside to almost like an icebox. I thought, maybe it's just the AC. Then I noticed that there was this large chair. That was positioned in the middle of the hallway, blocking the adjacent room. Sometimes in those hotels, you can open up to suites and hang out in both areas. I tried moving that chair out of the way, but it was so heavy it just wasn't going to happen. We walked into the bedroom suite. There was 2 queen beds. They were pushed all the way along to the walls. One of the beds was blocking the closet door. Very weird. The other was pushed all the way against the other wall, and it was blocking an entrance to the adjacent restroom. I thought that's an odd way to arrange a bedroom. But okay, my husband was really excited. He was opening up the curtains, excited about that ocean view, which was beautiful ocean crashing. You can see the pools beneath us. We dropped off our luggage, and we went to go enjoy the pool. We didn't return to the room until well past midnight. We showered, got ready for bed. I was very fussy. I was struggling to sleep. Tossing and turning and tossing and turning. Finally, I just started drifting off to sleep. I began to have this nightmare. And this nightmare, there was something. A presence on the right side of my body. It wasn't anything, but it was the feeling that something was there in this dream. I was just searching through a very dark room. Through a darkness, my hands were in front of me. I was looking for a light switch. As soon as I reached for that light switch, I felt it, and something grabbed my right wrist, violently pulled me to the left. At that time, I awoke with this gasp. My right hand was actually over my husband's body, and I was on top of him. I startled him awake. He just said, "Oh, you know you're okay. Stay calm. You had a nightmare." He kind of just tried soothing me. But I was not about to go back to sleep. I stayed awake until I saw that sunrise. It could have been around 4 in the morning. Day 2, we're out all day in the sun, having fun eating, drinking. We go back to the room well past midnight. As I'm in the restroom getting ready for bed, my husband starts turning off all the lights, making sure all the doors are locked, curtains are shut. He comes to the door of the restroom and says, "Have you been there the entire time?" I let him know that I was. I'll hurry up, so he can brush his teeth and get ready for bed. But he has this look on his face, like something is not okay. He says, "Swear to me you've been in the restroom the whole time." I'm like, "Yes, I swear I've been in the restroom. The whole time, what's going on?" He says, "I was waiting for you in the bedroom." And I started noticing that. The lights started turning off one by one by one by one. This is impossible because in the suite, there was a living room area, a kitchen area, a hallway, and there was about 8 or 9 light switches. They all worked together, not one by one. I didn't know what to say to him. He just said, "Do you believe me?" Of course I believe you. I shared with him ever since we got here. I just don't know about this room. I have a really weird feeling. I'm quite sensitive to paranormal activity. I do a lot of energy work. I'm open to all sorts of occult things. Something was off in that space. That night, we both had a really difficult time sleeping. As soon as we saw the sunlight, we were out that door. Our final day there. It was the same as the previous days. Out all day back, well past midnight, and we were both nervous and uncomfortable. But it was our last night, so whatever. Let's just enjoy. I begin to fall asleep. I was so fatigued. From the lack of sleep of the previous days, I begin to have that similar nightmare as the first night I'm in a dark room. I'm looking for a light switch. Then something starts grabbing my right wrist. This time is different. My right wrist is being squeezed. It is going from my wrist to my elbow to my shoulder. It's starting to get painful. I'm trying to wake up, but I'm experiencing sleep paralysis. I get really upset, almost like a switch flipped. I was no longer fearful. I was upset that this entity was touching me. I began calling for my guardian angels. I called protective ancestors. I also Catholic, so I called for Archangel Michael. I really demanded for this entity to release me, and not touch me had crossed a boundary. At that moment, I awake with this deep gasp. I sit up straight, look at my right arm. It is red, and it hurts, as my husband awakes as well. I show him my arm. He holds me, and he says, "Okay, it's 6 a.m. Let's pack up. Let's get out of here." I am really upset that this entity is messing with me. I let my husband know I'm not scared right now. I'm not afraid. I want to check in through meditation to see what is going on in this room. I'm able to look up what is called the Akashic, records of people, businesses, places that is like a library of the universe. All records that have been, will be, and are through meditation. I can get information. So I called for some spiritual protection, and I began checking in what's going on here. I see messages of an image of a young woman. She was sexually assaulted in that room. That's what I'm getting. It seemed like she was drunk, and she was taken there. She willingly went with this young man. But she wasn't ready to be intimate. She just wanted to hang out. The guy held her down during this assault. That's why my arm was being held down. I started inquiring about the lights. What was going on with the lights in the bedroom? The information that I received there was that it was actually my husband's guardian, his mother who has transitioned. The lights turning on were to protect us, so that if the lights were on, we really wouldn't have experienced any of that energy. What I had really experienced in that room was the residual energy of that young woman. I felt much better once I knew what I had experienced. I cleansed myself when I got home. First, made sure that there was no energy that attached itself to me or my husband. I began sharing this experience with some of my friends, who are healers and birth workers doulas. They let me know that. Because I'm now practicing this type of meditation and can channel. I'm kind of like a little antenna, and my Wi-Fi is on, and I can see or sense various energies. Due to this, I have to carry spiritual protection when I stay, or I go places that have a lot of energy, such as hotels, hospitals, or historical sites. This also came into play when I went to Las Vegas, later on that fall, where I had taken some of my protection with me, and it flew across the room while I was sleeping, and I wasn't bothered at all. That was pretty wild. I went to Las Vegas November of 2022. I brought my little pouch of protective herbs. A friend of mine had sent me a little jar of yarrow. Yarrow is a flower, an herb that is for fevers, for stopping bleeding. But energetically, it's for protection and for boundaries. And she said that was very helpful to her when she travels. So I brought that little bottle with me and had a fantastic time with my friends. In the evening, I placed my little protective pouch next to the dresser. Next to me, and I put the bottle of of yarrow flower essence next to me and blissfully went to bed. I don't know what time it could have been. In Vegas, all hours of the day. People are going in and out of the casinos. I heard while I was sleeping this loud crash, but I'd assume it was someone walking by and had knocked on our door, accidentally stumbling to their room. Didn't really pay any mind. The morning we awoke, I noticed that my little pouch was on the floor. Next to my bed, I figured, oh, maybe it's leathered out from the dresser. I was walking towards the restroom, which is next to the door of the hotel, and I see my little bottle of yarrow in front of the door. It is absolutely impossible that little bottle could have gotten there on its own, because that was a good 8 feet away, 8 feet in a diagonal to the left. I woke my husband up and I said, "Hey, did you happen to pick up my little bottle?" Which I knew he hadn't. That would have been odd of him. He just looked at me and said, "No, I didn't touch your things." I just picked it up and just laughed, because I felt it was. That crash that I had heard in the evening was that little bottle rolling to the front of the room, where maybe there was some energy that was not very light near me. I now always carry my little pouch and my little bottle whenever I'm going to stay in spaces that are of high energy. We are all so sensitive. I think it's just, we always know when something's off, but we don't trust our instinct of what it is. We kind of just feel I'm off. You know, it's not the room. I used to travel a lot, and I had always had a hard time sleeping in hotel rooms the very first night. At that time, I didn't understand. Why do I have such trouble sleeping? My justification used to be, well, I'm not in my bed. But it's more than that. It's all the people's energy that have been in that space that are making you restless. I would recommend get maybe an obsidian or onyx and rub that over the bed, just to absorb any energy that was left behind in that bed, because we can't do a smoke cleanse in a non-smoking room. Another thing that I would probably do is agua de Florida water that is used for cleansing. I pack that in a little spray bottle and spray to try to get it a little bit more calm and clear. Some people use vibration, like a little bell. The sound and the vibration kind of clears things away, but it's really our intention of I don't want to be bothered, and I'm just clearing away anything that doesn't belong to me. I don't want anything to attach and come with me. I just wanted the rest. Those travelers, I think, need to be very conscious of your spiritual hygiene, because it is definitely real, and especially for people that are more at tune. I gotta spray myself down. I gotta whatever. If you are of the Catholic faith, get yourself a little bit of holy water. Just rub yourself with your hands. Something that, you know, is intentional that I'm cleaning. I'm not attaching to the story. I'm not attaching to anything attached with this. And fresh and clean all the time. Totally just learning this stuff. I come from a strong Catholic background, which I still am a cultural Catholic, but I'm also open to just all the beautiful and bizarre, universal things, that there's more than we could ever comprehend. But the more you know, the more you have to be conscious of, okay, I'm not feeling weird for no reason. There's something my body, my cells are telling me something's off. I need to trust myself. Adalia sent me a few items to help with protection while I travel following the recording of the story. Thank you very much for that, Idalia. I am aware that listening to so many true experiences like this may come with consequences. Thank you very much for listening. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story, The Girl with Black Hair. My story begins after my parents' divorce. They wanted to co-parent and live in the same house. They decided to move to a new city in Valencia, Venezuela, around 2006. 2007, we finally settled in this house. That was really close to my new school. This house was inside a gated neighborhood. Our house was the last one on the street and had a koi pond, a huge tree in the entrance that made the house look more shaded. It was a big, one-story house with 5 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. Right when we came inside, the house gave me a really weird, creepy vibe. My room was next to my dad's bathroom and bedroom. My dad's bathroom had a big, cool shower that had glass doors. There was no roof, only an mesh roof. But a still rainwater and small leaves will get inside. Sometimes I really like taking showers there. I had to get inside my dad's room to use the bathroom, and I always felt like there was a really welcoming, bad vibe in his room. It was always the coldest room in the whole house. I didn't like being in his room because of that. I used to enter and leave in a rush every time I used his bathroom. When we moved, we had some boxes and things in the studio go missing. My mom couldn't find an error again. My mom and my siblings started seeing black shadows. In different parts of the house, we always have the feeling of being watched, and an unwelcome feeling. There was this day, I was in the studio using the computer. You could see the studio through a window. In the living room, my brother was in the living room when he saw a man behind me, watching what I was doing. One afternoon, I was in my room, doing my homework and listening to music. Suddenly, I heard someone pounding with their face on my window. Really hard. I was really scared. I was frozen for a moment, until I thought maybe someone was breaking into the house. It had happened before I opened the window, but I didn't see anything. I decided to look in the backyard. Since you could see the backyard from my window, I saw a woman running really fast to her right. She had long hair. She was wearing a long dress. She was translucent. There was this time that I was checking myself in the mirror instead of seeing my reflection. I saw someone else. It quickly disappeared. I stay in the house while my mom went out for groceries. I was doing my homework, and suddenly I felt someone watching me. The air felt heavy. I got really scared. But I call my mom when I call her. Someone growled really close to me. I ran and waited outside my house until my mom arrived. Another time I was in my mom's room, when suddenly I had chills on my whole body, and I felt someone scratch my arm. I experienced a lot of sleep paralysis in this house. My sister also had a few experiences in this house. She was in her room with her family dog when he started growling and barking. My sister saw a girl with black hair and white dress walking around and disappeared quickly. During a thunderstorm on this day, my sister was in the bathroom, and when she stepped out, lightning struck nearby. The lights dimmed, and when it came back, she saw the air again. There was a fire that occurred once. For some unknown reason, luckily, a gardener and other neighbors helped, taking the fire down. After all these occurrences, we had a friend whose aunt read tarot cards. I was really skeptical when she read mine. She said there was an evil entity sent from an ex-girlfriend of my dad. She was a Santara. She sent evil spirits to keep us away from my dad because she was jealous of my mom, my sister and I relationship. And there was one spirit that was in love with my dad. They also mentioned that I had a third eye, and I was able to feel more of these paranormal activities. A few months later, we have to move out because our lease had ended. We moved to a new house, which was a relief, but things didn't stop. My mom was in the kitchen. She saw this girl with black hair and white long dress. She thought it was me, and she was asking her to put away the groceries. But she ignored her and then disappeared. I was always a target when I was doing my homework. This time, the girl walked in the hallway in front of my room and quickly disappeared again. It's another time that I was really upset. I was ripping some old pictures, and I was going to harm myself with a small scissor. I went through depression and had a tendency to self-harm. During these years, I had it on my table, the seizure, but suddenly it moved away and it fell on the ground. It was really strange because I thought, did I move it by accident? But it was not in the edge of the table. I didn't feel anything strange, but I don't know, maybe somebody was trying to protect me. Or maybe something was just there, tried to do something and just fell. After these things stopped happening, my dad, he just didn't believe us. And he thinks that we were just crazy. My mom, she really thinks something. What's going on in the house? And she had her experiences. Not as much as me and my sister. We're like the ones that had more things. My family, they all believe that something was going on in that house. I talked to a friend. He was a neighbor in that first house. He says there was something going on in the house, but they didn't know what happened. The owners of the house, they sell it to for a cooking class. That didn't work after they did a clandestine casino. Now it's a restaurant. Up next, if you want to listen to even more ghost stories, check out our other show hosted by Michelle. The cover looks like a newspaper clipping. Real callers and very creepy. Thank you very much for listening. See you soon. Please listen to the story, The Girl with Black Hair. My story begins after my parents' divorce. They wanted to co-parent and live in the same house. They decided to move to a new city in Valencia, Venezuela around 2006. 2007, we finally settled in this house. That was really close to my new school. This house was inside a gated neighborhood. Our house was the last one on the street and had a koi pond, a huge tree in the entrance. That made the house look more shaded. It was a big, one-story house with 5 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. Right when we came inside, the house gave me a really weird, creepy vibe. My room was next to my dad's bathroom and bedroom. My dad's bathroom had a big, cool shower that had glass doors. There was no roof, only a mesh roof. But a still rainwater and small leaves will get inside. Sometimes I really like taking showers there. I had to get inside my dad's room to use the bathroom, and I always felt like there was a really welcoming, bad vibe in his room. It was always the coldest room in the whole house. I didn't like being in his room because of that. I used to enter and leave in a rush every time I use his bathroom. When we moved, we had some boxes and things in the studio go missing. My mom couldn't find an error again. My mom and my siblings started seeing black shadows. In different parts of the house, we always have the feeling of being watched, and an unwelcome feeling. There was this day, I was in the studio using the computer. You could see the studio through a window. In the living room, my brother was in the living room when he saw a man behind me, watching what I was doing. One afternoon, I was in my room, doing my homework and listening to music. Suddenly, I heard someone pounding with their face on my window. Really hard. I was really scared. I was frozen for a moment, until I thought maybe someone was breaking into the house. It had happened before I opened the window, but I didn't see anything. I decided to look in the backyard, since you could see the backyard from my window. I saw a woman running really fast to her right. She had long hair. She was wearing a long dress. She was translucent. There was this time that I was checking myself in the mirror instead of seeing my reflection. I saw someone else. It quickly disappeared. I stay in the house while my mom went out for groceries. I was doing my homework, and suddenly I felt someone watching me. The air felt heavy. I got really scared. But I call my mom when I call her. Someone growled really close to me. I ran and waited outside my house until my mom arrived. Another time I was in my mom's room, when suddenly I had chills on my whole body, and I felt someone scratch my arm. I experienced a lot of sleep paralysis in this house. My sister also had a few experiences in this house. She was in her room with her family dog when he started growling and barking. My sister saw a girl with black hair and white dress walking around and disappeared quickly. During a thunderstorm on this day, my sister was in the bathroom, and when she stepped out, lightning struck nearby. The lights dimmed, and when it came back, she saw the air again. There was a fire that occurred once. For some unknown reason, luckily, a gardener and other neighbors helped, taking the fire down. After all these occurrences, we had a friend whose aunt read tarot cards. I was really skeptical when she read mine. She said there was an evil entity sent from an ex-girlfriend of my dad. She was a Santara. She sent evil spirits to keep us away from my dad because she was jealous of my mom, my sister and I relationship. And there was one spirit that was in love with my dad. They also mentioned that I had a third eye, and I was able to feel more of these paranormal activities. A few months later, we have to move out because our lease had ended. We moved to a new house, which was a relief, but things didn't stop. My mom was in the kitchen. She saw this girl with black hair and white long dress. She thought it was me, and she was asking her to put away the groceries. But she ignored her and then disappeared. I was always a target when I was doing my homework. This time, the girl walked in the hallway in front of my room and quickly disappeared again. It's another time that I was really upset. I was ripping some old pictures, and I was going to harm myself with a small scissor. I went through depression and had a tendency to self-harm. During these years, I had it on my table, the seizure, but suddenly it moved away and it fell on the ground. It was really strange, because I thought, did I move it by accident? But it was not in the edge of the table. I didn't feel anything strange. But I don't know, maybe somebody was trying to protect me. Or maybe something was just there, tried to do something and just fell. After these things stopped happening, my dad, he just didn't believe us. And he thinks that we were just crazy. My mom, she really thinks something. What's going on in the house? And she had her experiences. Not as much as me and my sister. We're like the ones that had more things. My family, they all believe that something was going on in that house. I talked to a friend. He was a neighbor in that first house. He says there was something going on in the house, but they didn't know what happened. the owners of the house. They sell it to, for a cooking class. That didn't work after they did a clandestine casino. Now it's a restaurant. Up next, if you want to listen to even more ghost stories, check out our other show hosted by Michelle. The cover looks like a newspaper clipping. Real callers and very creepy. Thank you very much for listening. See you soon. Please listen to the story, The Girl with Black Hair. My story begins after my parents' divorce. They wanted to co-parent and live in the same house. They decided to move to a new city in Valencia, Venezuela around 2006. 2007, we finally settled in this house. That was really close to my new school. This house was inside a gated neighborhood. Our house was the last one on the street and had a koi pond, a huge tree in the entrance. That made the house look more shaded. It was a big, one-story house with 5 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. Right when we came inside, the house gave me a really weird, creepy vibe. My room was next to my dad's bathroom and bedroom. My dad's bathroom had a big, cool shower that had glass doors. There was no roof, only in a mesh roof. But a still rainwater and small leaves will get inside. Sometimes I really like taking showers there. I had to get inside my dad's room to use the bathroom, and I always felt like there was a really welcoming, bad vibe in his room. It was always the coldest room in the whole house. I didn't like being in his room because of that. I used to enter and leave in a rush every time I use his bathroom. When we moved, we had some boxes and things in the studio go missing. My mom couldn't find an error again. My mom and my siblings started seeing black shadows. In different parts of the house, we always have the feeling of being watched, and an unwelcome feeling. There was this day, I was in the studio using the computer. You could see the studio through a window. In the living room, my brother was in the living room when he saw a man behind me, watching what I was doing. One afternoon, I was in my room, doing my homework and listening to music. Suddenly, I heard someone pounding with their face on my window. Really hard. I was really scared. I was frozen for a moment, until I thought maybe someone was breaking into the house. It had happened before I opened the window, but I didn't see anything. I decided to look in the backyard. Since you could see the backyard from my window, I saw a woman running really fast to her right. She had long hair. She was wearing a long dress. She was translucent. There was this time that I was checking myself. In the mirror, instead of seeing my reflection, I saw someone else. It quickly disappeared. I stay in the house while my mom went out for groceries. I was doing my homework, and suddenly I felt someone watching me. The air felt heavy. I got really scared. But I call my mom when I call her. Someone growled really close to me. I ran and waited outside my house until my mom arrived. Another time I was in my mom's room, when suddenly I had chills on my whole body, and I felt someone scratch my arm. I experienced a lot of sleep paralysis in this house. My sister also had a few experiences in this house. She was in her room with her family dog when he started growling and barking. My sister saw a girl with black hair and white dress walking around and disappeared quickly. During a thunderstorm on this day, my sister was in the bathroom, and when she stepped out, lightning struck nearby. The lights dimmed, and when it came back, she saw the air again. There was a fire that occurred once. For some unknown reason, luckily, a gardener and other neighbors helped, taking the fire down. After all these occurrences, we had a friend whose aunt read tarot cards. I was really skeptical when she read mine. She said there was an evil entity sent from an ex-girlfriend of my dad. She was a Santara. She sent evil spirits to keep us away from my dad because she was jealous of my mom, my sister and I relationship. And there was one spirit that was in love with my dad. They also mentioned that I had a third eye. And I was able to feel more of these paranormal activities. A few months later, we have to move out because our lease had ended. We moved to a new house, which was a relief. But things didn't stop. My mom was in the kitchen. She saw this girl with black hair and white long dress. She thought it was me, and she was asking her to put away the groceries. But she ignored her and then disappeared. I was always a target when I was doing my homework. This time, the girl walked in the hallway in front of my room and quickly disappeared again. It's another time that I was really upset. I was ripping some old pictures, and I was going to harm myself with a small scissor. I went through depression and had a tendency to self-harm. During these years, I had it on my table, the seizure, but suddenly it moved away and it fell on the ground. It was really strange, because I thought, did I move it by accident? But it was not in the edge of the table. I didn't feel anything strange. But I don't know, maybe somebody was trying to protect me. Or maybe something was just there. Tried to do something and just fell. After these things stopped happening, my dad, he just didn't believe us. And he thinks that we were just crazy. My mom, she really thinks something. What's going on in the house? And she had her experiences. Not as much as me and my sister. We're like the ones that had more things. My family, they all believe that something was going on in that house. I talked to a friend. He was a neighbor in that first house. He says there was something going on in the house. But they didn't know what happened. The owners of the house, they sell it to for a cooking class. That didn't work after they did a clandestine casino. Now it's a restaurant. Up next, if you want to listen to even more ghost stories, check out our other show hosted by Michelle. The cover looks like a newspaper clipping. Real callers and very creepy. Thank you very much for listening. See you soon.